Welcome and salutations to the first ever episode of State of X. It's that show brought to you by the Keeg, where we talk about all the X-Men news up until this point. Sure, we're focusing on January 2024 because we're just in the beginning of February and we can talk about that. But everything that the X-Men have been going through, the mutants in Marvel Comics and whatnot, everything that they've been going through has led us up to this point. So, sure, we're going to be talking about January 2024, but we're going to talk about everything that's led up to this point. I'm your host, Dimithri Perera, and I also got the awesome guest, King Krakoa himself, Aaron. Aaron, what's up, man?
What's going on, my guy? It's going pretty good. It's going pretty good. It's a eventful day in X related news, and it's a exciting time. Well, not exciting time. It's a interesting time to be an X fan right now, and we're just basking in the fall of X and hopefully what ensues. So
Yes,
yeah,
it is. I don't know. It's been weird and wild, and like
yeah.
some people, people who don't know what was I doing here? People who don't know like what's going on with X-Men right now,
Hmm.
like things have been going on with X-Men for the past
Yeah,
however many years, right? And
right.
so um like that's been wild with the Krakoan age and whatnot.
Oh, for
Some
sure.
people know X-Men from the cartoons, right? And for those of them
Hmm.
who are trying to jump in, hopefully this show will kind of help them adjust if anyone wants to catch up to comics
Yeah.
and know what's going on, or just people who are interested in like their favorite X-Men and like, oh, I wonder
Hmm.
what they're up to now, that it's been so long since a lot of people have read comics. We're here to fill them in.
Right. And that's the good thing about this age. It's a good time to get into X-Men because if you're just like any character that they're doing, this reboot has kind of been like a jumping off point and they still remind you of the old times. So if you want to, you can get into those. But like this is a good jumping off point for people, especially for people who are like, I wonder how my character's doing that I just thought that I've always liked but never really like saw that much of. In this on New Age, like they've been giving like the C-listers like some like shine in this. So like
Yeah,
that's what's so great about it. And I'm interested to see how they're gonna do it going forward.
yeah. I mean, people, some people have read comics when they were younger, and then they stopped
Right.
at a certain point and they never got back to
Hmm.
it, and that's understandable.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
me, I kept going, right, and like,
Mhm.
and for people out there that don't realize that like comics aren't just for kids, like there's a clear, like there are kid comics and there are
Mhm.
adult comics and teenager comics, I guess, going into adult.
Yeah.
X-Men's not a kid's comic.
Right. It it is and it isn't. It
Okay.
depends on it depends on the series.
Okay.
This one is definitely for sure like this is a good teen book maybe like a basking like 15, 16 maybe.
Yeah.
Cuz and I say that because I just started my first thing as a teenager was reading New X-Men. So like I got into the raunchier side of the
Yeah.
X-Men pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I come into it as with infidelities and like, Emma Frost talking about her like previous like coke habit. Like,
Yeah.
like this is the moments I come into. So I'm like, this seems like a good little like jumping off point because it's not too crazy, but it's just good enough.
Yeah. What you said you got into reading X-Men with New X-Men,
Yeah, for
which
sure.
was like
Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison's like early
Mhm.
2000s onwards X-Men run
Mhm.
that lasted what, like 5
Yep.
years or so. Um
Yeah, it lasted for a minute. Yeah, 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 yeah.
what drew you to New X-Men? Because I'll be honest,
Mm.
me as a
Mhm.
kid, I did not want to read New X-Men. I didn't like the art.
Mhm.
I didn't like the
Okay.
art. I didn't like, well, because that the art is kind of like gross looking to a kid. It's just like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
in some of them, yeah, it can
Yeah.
be. Yeah, 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 I see
Is
it.
it's Frank
Well,
Whiteley, right? So like,
I
uh
think so.
yeah, I never used to be a fan of Frank Whiteley. Now I can
Mhm.
respect him, but um I liked the more uh bright and shiny mutant stuff. So like even
Mhm.
the
I feel
even the
that.
bad ones, the ones that were like
Mhm.
when Juggernaut was on the team, Because around that
Oh,
time, New
okay.
X-Men was New X-Men. I think Juggernaut was
Yeah.
on Uncanny X-Men
I think he was coming. Yeah, I think he was coming up right after on that one.
when
What
North Star was
didn't?
on the team, right? Yeah,
Yeah, actually,
yeah,
I didn't read that one. I didn't read. I think I read like the butt end of it. So this is how I got into it.
yeah,
So I all right. So I had a brother, and he had an older brother,
mm,
and his older brother just like loved comics. I always loved comics because the first thing I found, I went to this flea market and I found a bunch of Teen Titan comics
yeah,
by Jeff Johns, and I fell in love with comics automatically. So like then like it was a stint where I didn't find any new ones because they stopped selling them there. So then I found my his brother was getting rid of a bunch of comics. It was like boxes and boxes of comics. So like I just like he said, grab whatever you want. And I found so many new X-Men comics in there. And I found it was honestly an assortment. I found some JSA, some Blackest. No, I know. I think I was just getting the comics and that's what I started Blackest Night. But I found so much, but new X-Men was what stood out to me,
yeah,
and I read the first one from like the first thing of me reading like Genosha's storyline to like I've always liked stories like I guess it picked me up because I've always liked storylines that are real and that kind of like mix in with reality in a way.
yeah,
And like I do like darker storylines as well, and this was a great like light but also very dark storyline, and it was just the story that picked me up. Like they made Jean in a way that she wasn't really seen. Like this was one of the first times where she just wasn't like always just like hiding behind her powers. She was kind of just like standing in like, oh, I'm the Phoenix and I'm the shit.
yeah,
And like, like even like Emma Frost, they made Emma Frost a character that is what made her the shining star that she is today. Like, and it just made them real people to me and made them human. And yeah, I just always loved it.
yeah.
Sorry,
Uh,
I go on to rant about Grant and Morrison's X
I
Men, and
mean,
I can talk
that's
about
what
it all day.
that's what this show's for. It's just me and you. We're talking about X-Men.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
with New X-Men, I didn't like it as a kid, but I grew up and I read it
Mhm.
and I liked it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Morrison has a convoluted way of doing their plot lines and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so I'm not a big fan of Grant Morrison per se. I don't hate
Hmm.
Grant Morrison, but Grant Morrison is, I can tell, is good and qualified and like quality work.
Yeah,
But when it
because
comes
they've
to my
done good
enjoyment,
Flash stories too. Hmm.
yeah, my enjoyment of Morrison's not very high. I
Okay.
don't, Grant Morrison's JLA run is
Ooh,
iconic,
I
but not
forgot
as
about
enjoyable as the runs that happened right after.
that. Hmm.
So like
Hmm.
Mark Wade had a run and Joe
Yeah.
Kelly had a run, and I loved Joe
Hmm.
Kelly's JLA.
Hmm.
That being said, we're here to talk about X-Men. But
Right.
like I feel like a lot of people grew up with the like at least millennials or whatnot grew up with X-Men the cartoon and then the X-Men movies,
Hmm.
and around that time fell off of X-Men fandom.
Yeah.
And whereas I went full speed ahead with Ultimate X-Men,
Hmm.
like I credit
I got into it late, but yeah.
Marvel's Ultimate line got me buying comics every month. Like
Hmm.
that's the
I can
habit
see
you
it.
like you want to get kids addicted to comics. It's not just loving the characters, it's not just loving the
Yeah.
books. You got to get the kids to spend their allowance once a month or whatever
Right.
at the comic shop. That's what you
Yes.
would need to do. And there's a lot of competition. A kid would might want to
Hmm.
spend it on a video
Yeah.
game than a comic book. So
Hmm.
it's either that or you get
And that's when
kids.
Pokemon cards were hot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Right. So
That took
like,
all my money.
yeah. It was a little after Pokemon for me. So Ultimate X-Men was like
Hmm.
2001, I think. And so like
Hmm.
for me, I'm like, okay, I stopped buying Pokemon cards around there, and then I started going to the bookstore and buying those comics.
Hmm.
But the point being is that like no matter how people are loving X-Men, sometimes they
Hmm.
drop off, but they're like, "Oh, I wonder what my favorite character of Wolverine
Yeah.
is up to," or Storm is up to, or
Hmm.
"Oh, I remember that character Cable from that Capcom game and he has a big gun."
Right.
You know?
Let's see what's going on there.
It was
Right.
the golden age back then for X-Men. X-Men
Oh
were
my
on
gosh. Right.
everything.
everything. Like they made comics hot more, even more, like, because everybody wanted to know what's going on with that cool character, because they were in every game at that time. They were doing a lot. They were in a lot of like, even with Avengers stuff, and even at that time when they weren't even had the rights for them at that time, they still, like, there was such a demand for them where they had to do it. Like, they even tried to make the Inhumans, and they still couldn't replace them.
Yeah.
Like, it just, they have staying power that just has. It's something to be said about the X-Men that have more staying power than teams like the Justice League. Well,
Not the
sometimes the
Justice
Justice League,
League.
but also
Don't
not
come
the
at the
Justice League. You're
Justice
right.
League.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. No disrespect. No disrespect.
X-Men
But
over
like
Avengers. X-Men have
Avengers for sure.
yeah.
Avengers, Fantastic Four, and like characters like that. Like, I feel like they have a sense of there's such a specialty that happens with the X-Men because they are a team and they work together as a team, but you can tell they are family as well. They are their chosen family. And it's like it's a power that, like, even with the whole of the turning of bad guys to good guys, because you can understand, they understand what they're going through, and like, how many conversions have they done in like comic history, and like Avengers have done that as well, and like, of course, but they haven't. It just doesn't hit like the X-Men. I'm sorry, like,
People don't realize that, like, people, if they're looking at like the late 2000s 2010 era,
hmm
like, the Avengers get a big boost because of the MCU, but people
yeah,
don't realize that, like, two flagship characters slash titles for Marvel Comics were Spider-Man and X-Men. Back
right.
in the day, it was Spider-Man and X-Men
The
were
Avengers weren't a thing,
kings.
guys.
Like, and that's why they
Yes,
had 12 Spider-Man books and 12 X-Men books every month. Like, that's
right.
why, because the money was there. And
It was
so,
right.
but then they tried to squash X-Men because they didn't have the rights. And
hmm
I would say the X-Men have a staying power that a lesser known title, if squashed,
hmm
would never have come back. Like,
Yeah,
from the decades of
yeah.
what I think, like, misappropriation of the X-Men franchise,
hmm
like
Right.
bad movies, um, um, just not proper marketing. You know what I mean? Like,
hmm
X-Men aren't
Right.
on. They're not on backpacks anymore. You know,
Yeah, right.
but like, they're not down and out. They're just, they
Exactly.
can't die.
They've never been forgotten. Right,
Right.
exactly. Like, even when they've been like gone for, because that whole period of like what 2000s, like too early, like 2003s to like 2000, like tens or so, like there wasn't really anyone talking about them like as much, like at that point. Like,
I
they
mean,
had
I
their
don't.
movies.
They had the
They had
movies, yeah.
I'm talking, I mean more in, I guess I mean more in comics, I guess,
Okay,
because
because
they
there's
weren't really.
mainstream people. There's the
Yeah,
normies,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
which,
exactly.
maybe this podcast is for, like, for people who aren't reading comics, like, hopefully to
Mhm.
catch back up with X-Men and
Yeah, for
whatnot.
sure.
But like, also there are the diehards like us, right? Like, that are
Right,
reading comics.
exactly. Yeah, we were in the trenches
Yeah, we
whenever when
were.
the X-Men were down and out. We were there, and
Yeah.
like they had some deep, and like when people were there weren't there in the lost years, because I did fall off of X-Men. I think I stopped right after the new X-Men team started going more towards just the children, and then I kind
When
of
they,
felt
which new
when it
X.
was just like when it was like the new X-Men kids of like the Stepford Cuckoos, the
Oh,
David Eileen Prodigy,
yeah.
and them. I did love their series, but then I think I just I think that was also around the time I couldn't find the books following after that, so I
Yeah.
kind of fell off. And I'm one of those. I'm a completionist. I have to finish something, and like it irks me, so I just stop for a minute, and then I came back in the X-Men a while after. I think it was around the time that the OG5 had came back from the
Yeah.
fuure,
That's what I
and
thought you were talking
I
about. But yeah.
oh yeah, oh look, I when I tell
You
you,
like them?
man,
I
I,
liked them.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Like that, the storylines that were told through them were so different. That story. Look here, I'm gonna tell the X fans something, and y'all are gonna come for me, and that's okay. I will stand on this hill till I die. But I did not like Scott Summers. I've been a staunch.
In general, you
Oh,
don't like Scott?
I'm an antagonist. I'm an antagonist. Like
Okay.
for Scott, yeah, I'm an antagonist for Scott Summers. And you know why? Because I'm a Jean Grey stan. And the first things I've seen reading comics was him cheating on Jean Grey with Emma Frost. So
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you're trash." And then, of course, I read more of him, and then I saw like, "Oh, you left your wife and your child for your high school sweetheart."
Right.
didn't even didn't even think to check on them. Like she said, go. You never came back. Like he went to go get a carton of milk and never came back again, guys.
Right.
And like that's something that we as characters like, and I hate that for Scott fans, like true Scott Summers fans. 'Cause some of my friends are like great fans of them, and I hate that for them because they had to stand on that. Like, but
Yeah.
honestly, that series, the OG5 coming back, it made me like Scott in a way that was so different because it was the champions. When
Yeah.
he came for when he was on the champions, and he just they allowed him to just be like a kid, not just, oh, I'm fighting for mutant rights. I'm just doing this,
Right.
and like he wasn't the leader as well. So that just made him a team player,
Yeah.
and that's what I loved about it. And honestly, like just reading all of their stories, like Bobby's, of course, as a gay man, I love Bobby's story, even the realization of Jean Grey telling you that you're gay, like
Yeah.
it was hilarious. Like some people are like upset about that storyline, but I'm like, what are you talking about? That like sometimes, and sometimes it takes a friend to be like, you're you're gay, right? Like
Right.
sometimes it takes that moment, and like, and I did like the moment. I did like how it was done, like the conversation between him and his future self, like even Angel, like they made me like Angel more. Like
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't hate his relationship with Laura. I wasn't like, "Oh yeah, we need to have this more," but like I
Yeah.
wasn't like, "Oh no, never again."
So,
But even like his flame wings, it was
yeah.
cool.
I mean, to fill just anyone just roughly in, basically what we're
Oh yeah.
talking about right now is there was a moment in time in X-Men comics where Cyclops was viewed as having made some major mistakes, and so
Hmm.
people hated Cyclops, including Beast. Now, Beast and
Yeah.
Cyclops were were two of the five original X-Men. So what Beast wanted
Hmm.
to do is Beast went back into the past, grabbed the five original X-Men, which is younger Beast, younger Cyclops,
Hmm.
younger Iceman, younger Jean Grey, younger Angel, and bring them forward in time to the present to see how messed up Cyclops is now, which is
Right.
also a messed up thing of Beast to do for
Right.
multiple reasons.
That was
Um,
one of his like first real like that. Well, not one of his first real, but that was one of his big descents.
yeah, he Beast is on a whole different thing now. But anyway, so he brought the original five into the present, but then they couldn't go back to the past, and they became
Hmm.
stuck in the present. So now they were going almost on like character growth that was different than the characters originally had gone
Hmm.
on. Which means
Yeah.
Beast dabbled in dark magic. Um,
Hmm.
and
I
then
like that moment. That was a cool moment.
Iceman learned that he was gay.
Hmm.
Cyclops dated Bloodstorm. Remember when like Bloodstorm
Yes.
comes in?
God, I love that.
I'm
Yes.
cool with it.
That was a moment.
I'm
I
cool with
wanted it
it.
so bad.
Angel dated Laura, but
Mhm.
didn't Cyclops kind of get into Laura too?
Cyclops, I was just gonna say, like, there was a long moment where Cyclops and Laura would have definitely been a thing, and then he went to go with his dad, to be with the
Yeah,
Starjammers. I did low key cry. That was a comic moment I cried at when he saw his dad for the first time. I don't know why.
because at that point he thought his dad was dead. Because
Yeah, exactly.
he
He
only
was a
finds out his dad's
teenager,
alive later in life.
right?
So
As he's an adult, right? Like
yeah,
lay
it's Chris
way later
Claremont's
on.
run essentially.
Yeah.
And so like, because yeah, the X Men don't go into space until like the Phoenix Force stuff,
Yeah.
like the
Right.
Shi'ar Empire stuff. So the point being is like so much is going. I mean, this is X Men history for you.
Right. Right,
But
X-Men history, guys.
what?
It needs to be established, like, and I love that kept it in canon to where like we can have these moments in like the new stuff too.
Yeah. Well, they did a thing. They did this thing where
The Jean Grey
they
solo.
went back to the past. They put a mind block on them
Hmm.
until
Yep.
present day, where they would then
Right.
unlock it so they can have their previous memories and whatnot. And so
Right.
I thought that was super cool and a way
Yeah.
around all that.
and even like the little special they do with like Cable bringing Cyclops back from the dead. You remember that one? Like it was that moment where he like uses he goes back, Cable goes in the past and like inserts something into onto Scott to absorb the Phoenix Force when Jean comes back to life.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole thing. But yeah, like he comes back to life and then like he's the who he was, like, the guy who was he was like on some Magneto business, like,
Yeah.
he was still that guy. And then you see him remember everything as a kid, and then everything starts to like coincide. He's like, what have I done? I
Right.
can't believe I did this. And like I love those moments when they all kind of like link in what happened with who they were now. I kind of low key wanted them to stay though. I'm not gonna lie.
I like what they did mostly because that's the only way you can keep the timeline intact, but still
Right.
have
Yeah,
character
true.
growth. Because, for
Hmm.
example, Cyclops was on the Champions with Kamala Khan
Yeah.
and Miles,
He's a founding member, guys.
but
Like, we
like,
don't talk about that, but
is
he's a
he a
founding
founding? I
member
don't
of
think
the
he's a
Champions.
Is he a
Yeah.
founding member?
Oh no, he's a founding member.
Oh, okay,
I had the first volume. Yeah.
okay,
He was on there and I loved it. Like, and that's why I do love the moments when we get to see Miss Marvel and all of them see him again. Like, and even when like they needed like asylum, he was like, no, the Krakoa has you. Like,
yeah.
and I was like, this is amazing.
Well, I
Yeah,
like him now because he's always like champions forever, you know.
ever. And I loved it. Yeah,
And it's
every
like,
time he sees them.
yeah, I
Yeah, I
love
was
it.
like, "You
So
might die, guys."
like there's so much that's been happening with X-Men. Also, I
Yeah.
just wanted to point out that like you were talking about Cyclops, and like Cyclops is kind of like John Connor. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
destined for like to be the person to lead, to be the mutant
Yeah.
messiah essentially,
Mhm.
right? And which is funny because a lot there's a theory that I don't know whether I've told you that Terminator was based off of X-Men, the movie.
I can see that. Mhm,
So the movie Terminator came out after Days of Future Past, the comic.
mhm,
And I believe James Cameron was an X-Men fan back in the
mhm.
day. The similarities between Days of Future Past and Terminator are
I've never
like,
seen Terminator, now I'm gonna see it.
you've never seen
Jesus.
Terminator?
Never seen
Okay, so
Terminator.
I mean the basic plot of Terminator is that in the future the machines take over, the AI take over,
Mhm.
and
I already
um,
see it.
there's a human resistance versus the robots, and they realize they're losing, so they send a guy back into the past to. Oh no, sorry, they don't realize they're losing. They're still fighting the fight, but the Terminators send somebody in the past to kill the future leader of the resistance before he's born.
Mhm,
So they send Arnold to the past to kill Sarah Connor, who is destined to give birth to John Connor, who will lead the resistance against the
mhm.
robots. But so then the humans send a human, Kyle Reese, I think it's his name, Kyle Reese, back into the past to protect Sarah Connor against the Terminator. And that's just the first movie. So
Okay.
so Days of Future Past, the comic,
I can see it. Yeah.
where Kitty goes back in time,
Mhm,
she's in this dystopian future. She sends her mind back in time to her younger self to then protect
mhm,
um them the humans and or the mutants,
right.
and like stop that diversion into the timeline. Like they're
Mhm.
very similar. And so
Yeah, it is though.
I don't know. And then the
I
Sentinels
can see it.
themselves.
Right.
So
Well,
something to look into.
let's be real. X-Men has been an influence in a lot of other things. Like, even like, and a lot of people know this, but the iconic like Buffy season of like, one of the what was it, Faith, I think, turning into like the Dark Witch or whatever and almost
Willow.
killing them. Yeah, Willow, that's it. I keep forgetting their names.
Yeah.
I
Well,
always
because
watched
Joss
up to like
Whedon's a
season.
huge X-Men fan, and then he goes on
Yeah,
to
exactly.
write
And right, Josh
um
Whedon. Yeah.
astonishing X-Men. So
Yes.
well,
Right.
here's the thing. And before we get into kind of what the X-Men are doing up right now,
Hmm.
I personally believe that the X-Men as a story, as a franchise, as a collective is
Hmm.
the nexus of science fiction.
Yeah.
The reason I
Wholeheartedly.
say that is because X-Men inspire other sci-fi ideas in other material, but
Right.
they are also influenced by science fiction stuff from other material.
Exactly.
So everything
Like that
travels
whole.
through X-Men. They either start it or they keep things
Mhm.
going. And X-Men, like any science fiction thing, like storyline, trope,
Right.
whatever, X-Men's done it. Clones,
Right.
multiverse, alternate timelines, right? We're
Yeah.
talking like magic, like
Right.
like
And they do
everything.
with they kind of deal with so many things. They dip their toes in so many kind of things. It's hard not to. Like even like Chris Claremont's beginning, like even like you were saying, like him influencing or like being influenced by other things. Like his like early work is has like a lot of Star Trek vibes,
I was
like in
about
the outer space.
I was
Like
literally
yes,
going to say Star Trek. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
like as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, like because I'm a later on in life Trekkie, and
Same
yeah,
here.
as soon as I was like, yeah, this is that, like the from the transporters to like everything, man.
Right.
I did, and I loved it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I would say like modern sci-fi comes from Star
Hmm.
Trek and it comes from
For
Twilight
sure.
Zone,
Yeah.
like the original Twilight
So
Zone and
good.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
And but then we like sure we could talk about like Star Wars, but it's not the same. Like when we're talking like
Right.
science fiction as a like, you know,
Right. And Star Wars people
X-Men
do
take
not
the
come to our
ball
head.
and they run with it. Like
Yeah.
because and that really comes down to Chris Claremont because the
Hmm.
original 5 X-Men, they don't do that much. And then
They don't hit.
their
Right.
series gets canceled and then
Yeah.
they go on hiatus for like 4 or 5 years and then Chris Claremont
Right.
comes in with
Right. All new, all different.
yeah. So technically Chris Claremont didn't do
Uncanny.
Giant Size X-Men #1, but he
Yep,
did
that's the one. That's it.
I don't think he did
That's it.
that one.
You're right.
I don't
Uncanny. I mean, wait, no,
Giant
Giant
Size
Size.
was
I think that was Chris Claremont,
I
right?
thought that was
Yeah, that
Len
was him.
I thought that was Len
Oh
Wein,
wait,
um
you might be right.
but anyway, the point being is that like Chris Claremont takes it and then starts putting all the science fiction tropes in it. It is Len
Mm-hmm.
Wein. Len Wein
It is,
wrote
yeah,
Giant Size X-Men #1, and then Chris Claremont
pretty
took
much.
over right after that. But that's really when X-Men becomes what we think of now.
Yeah.
Giant Size X-Men #1. The introduction of
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine into the X-Men. Wolverine,
Right.
Storm,
Banshee,
Nightcrawler, Colossus.
Colossus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's my lineup.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
love,
Honestly, I love them.
yeah. So,
Like when I think of them, it's yeah, that's one of the iconic members. That's one of the iconic teams.
yeah. I have a question for you, and this is
Hmm.
going to tie us back into the Krakoan age. So the
Do it.
Krakoan age starts up, and we are shown essentially the mutants creating a mutant island of Krakoa in which they
Hmm.
can be safe, they can thrive, they can progress, they can do
Yes.
that, and obviously people on Earth are skeptical or scared
Right.
or angry, depending. Now,
Hmm.
what they do in House of X, Powers of X, which kicks off this new Krakoan age back in like 2019, I think it was,
Hmm.
is they mention that the current age of the X-Men is 10 years, which I
Yeah.
disagree with.
Yeah.
I disagree with
I
that because for multiple
Like, are
reasons.
they saying from 10 years from
The inception
when
of
it
the X-Men,
started?
the original 5, it's only been
That's
10
cap.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
I
that's cap.
I give
Yeah.
it about 15 years.
Saying the least. I was gonna like honestly, I was gonna say like no, yeah, 15. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to
because
know your opinion on how old you think because keep in mind that the X-Men universe
hmm
is the X-Men storyline, it would be the same age as like how long Spider-Man's been
Fantastic Four.
Spider-Man
And right.
and how long the Avengers have been around also.
True.
So cuz those have roughly been the same
They're
amount of
around the
time,
same time. Yeah.
you know? So like
Um,
how long has Spider-Man been Spider-Man? How long have the X-Men been a team?
right. See, I feel like the X-Men have to have been out before the Spider-Man because as soon as he's on the scene, they're like, he's a mutant. What's going
Really?
on? So
Spider-Man came out
the,
first.
y- are you sure?
The comic at least
You
came
know,
out
you
first.
are
Yeah.
definitely right. I'm tripping. The comics do that retroactively.
Yeah, they do
I'm
it. Yeah.
tripping.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, but I would say but I'm saying in the like comic universe though, like
Yeah,
for that, yeah, I'm tripping over myself, but yeah, I mean, like in historically
yeah.
he is, but like in the comic universe, I feel like he is like around. He
Well,
happens after the X Men come.
the public knows about mutants
Right. Okay.
before the X-Men come about, right? Very
Right.
little
But
bit.
he's. I feel like he's younger, but this is the thing though. I feel like he's younger than Jean and Scott. So like, I feel like he's at least a little bit younger than Jean and
Yeah,
Scott.
he's the same age as
Because he's
Iceman.
around Kitty's age. Yeah,
No, he's
exactly.
Iceman's
But
age.
Kitty and her around the same age though, because he's
Yeah,
the youngest member.
let's work this out. By the way, shout out to Nikhil Clayton, who
Yes,
I love Nikhil.
love him.
I hate Nikhil's idea of what the timeline is, because Nikhil will always just be like, "Hey, like time doesn't mean anything in comics, so like who
Right?
cares? Who cares?" And I'm
But it
like,
means it to me.
I need it. And he's like, at a certain point, then the
Right.
time stops working. I'm like, I don't, no, no.
It's
So
the SpongeBob meme. I need it. Like,
so I would say Iceman is only like 2 years younger than Cyclops. He can't be that much. What, 3 years?
no,
Three.
he's. No, I feel like they're like. I feel like he's at least like at least 3 years.
So what are we saying? At the start of X-Men, Cyclops, Jean Grey, those guys are like 17, 16?
I will give them 16. Yeah, right. Like
And
a good like
Iceman's
16,
13?
13.
He can't
Yes,
be 12. He's not
yes.
12. He's not Percy
I
Jackson.
would say honestly, I was gonna give him a Percy Jackson. Yeah, I
I
feel like he's a
mean,
Percy Jackson
in a
moment.
retcon, that would be cool. But also,
Yeah,
if Iceman's 12, like, Spider-Man starts when he's what, 15 or 16?
15,
So
15.
and he's like the same age as Iceman, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like him and they're the same age. Like
Yeah.
I feel like they are roughly the same age.
And Human Torch. I think Human Torch is either
Hmm.
their age or like 1 year older.
Yeah,
So
I feel like they are around this. They're all three of them are around the same age. Yeah.
yeah. So at worst, it could be a 14 for Iceman, 15 for Spider-Man, 16 for Human Torch.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then
that's
like
about
Jean
right.
Grey and Cyclops are like 17 or so when they
Yeah,
start, you know?
something around that.
But
Yeah.
like, and then Kitty comes around a couple years later,
Right.
you know?
But she's already the same age around them because they already grow up. Like even in the comics, they kind of like play off each other. Like they're around the same. They're around the same age.
Kitty's a couple years younger than Iceman. Kitty's like 2 years.
I would
At,
give them like a year.
really? Okay.
Yeah,
We're doing.
because
I
they dated before,
Yeah,
and you know,
but like that was later on in life, you know.
yeah, of course, yeah,
She's
for sure,
what, 13 or 14
right.
when she joins. But the point being is that
And mhm,
I see Kitty as being like, Kitty's been an X-Man for 10 years.
yeah,
I think she
yeah,
started
yeah,
when she was 14,
that's what I'm
and
saying.
then now she's 24.
Right, I feel like Kitty's at least been in X-Men for 10 years, so, like, that's what I'm like, it has to be at least, like, 15 years, because
Yeah,
I feel like them being around that age, I feel like that's a good moment for them. I feel like
yeah,
that sounds like a good, like, time, like,
yeah.
15?
It's been
That's
15
a good.
years,
Right.
and that puts like Cyclops and Jean Grey at let's see,
Because I know they're younger than
at
Scott and
32,
Sue. I'm not Scott,
like 32, like
Richard and
early
Sue.
30s.
Yeah, I give them early 30s for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, like him and like I feel like and everybody says like Emma's older than them, but I feel like Emma's around the same age as them.
You think Emma was like a young 20-year-old rocking those like the corset
Oh,
in the Hellfire
totes my
Club?
goat. Yeah, because her story shows like she goes in this, the Hellfire Club as a teenager, like once her powers develop, and she's like a stripper for them, like
Yeah,
and I'm using her powers.
yeah.
So like yeah, I would
I don't think
definitely
she's an
like she
actual
grew up in
stripper.
it.
I don't think she gets naked,
Mhm.
does she? Like,
No, 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 no.
I
She
think she's like
like
a
uses.
dominatrix, right?
Yeah, but she uses her like telekinesis to I mean her telepathy to like make them think like she's this beautiful girl
Yeah,
and like then she whatever. But yeah,
yeah.
they show her like actually like stripping off her thing for like Shaw.
Oh, all right. Oh, for Shaw. Well, that's
Yeah,
because it's
Shaw's different, but
Shaw's
yeah,
like a
she was yeah,
creepy grooming relationship,
for sure.
you
Yeah,
know?
all of them. All
Um
of them. Ugh, just
so
jeez.
with the Krakoan age, what ends up happening is that like the X-Men have like been fighting for 15 years. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're just like, look, we're just going to create a separate country. It's a
All right.
mutant island of Krakoa. We've done this for 15 years. This is maybe the only way that we can
Exactly.
kind of keep the peace around here. But then shit hits the fan,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Almost instantly. Like the first year was pretty. It was pretty like light. Like
Yeah.
they. It wasn't a problem that they couldn't figure out. But then after that Hellfire Gala,
The
it
first one?
just. Yeah.
There's been
After
three so
after
far. What happens
Araco.
at the first?
After Araco happens, honestly,
Oh,
it just
that's when
kind of
they
shit
premiere
storms.
Araco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then yeah, because the Planet Size X-Men, oh my God, still one of my favorite X-Men comics of all time, honestly.
Oh,
Like them creating the Araco, like showing the little moments, amazing.
yeah.
Amazing.
Uh, I mean, I'm gonna bring up another question for you because I'm very curious.
Oh
If
yeah.
you had a Mount
Mhm.
Rushmore of X Men
Mm.
events, like 4 events, let's say keeping
Ooh.
out the start of the X Men, you know,
Okay.
don't worry about the start
Okay.
because that's easy enough. Yeah, the X Men had to have started somewhere. But
Yeah.
like, what
Right.
are those
That's
four? What are those four tent pole events?
ooh. That like just like. Are you talking about my like
Your
staple like just
your
like have
personal
always
like
okay.
four major, like these are the
Damn,
columns
this
that
is a
that hold
good
up X
one.
Men.
Okay, so for me, it is it's some tragic moments in here. The first one being the issue of Genosha being destroyed.
Okay,
That one because I think that was around the same time as the no,
Genosha
scratch
gets
that.
destroyed
The
in New X Men #1,
okay, yeah.
or not number one.
Then
It was like a different numbering
you know
system
what?
back then, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a moment that I feel is staple. I was about to say my favorite moments, and okay, that one, um, honestly, uh, the death of X.
Which one was
That
Death
was
of
a
X?
it was the one where
Oh, the Terrigen Mist one.
the Terrigen Mist thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the Terrigen Mist thing, and then they kill the Inhumans kills Cyclops, and then you find out the whole time it was Emma who was like doing the whole thing. He died in the beginning of the book,
Yeah.
and like I that one that was a mind fuck to me. People hated that, but I
Yeah.
thought that was a mind fuck to me.
Yeah.
But that one this Krakoan age, that first issue
Yeah.
and hmm. You're making me work for this one. Okay.
I'm gonna say my four, which and
Yeah.
this
Go ahead.
this probably changes, and I also feel bad because
It mine does too.
two of them are linked in a way. So first one is Giant Size X Men #1. Easy,
Okay.
like boom. That redefined X Men for decades,
Hmm.
right? Giant Size X Men
For
number
sure.
one. Two, I think, is Avengers versus X Men. I just think so much happened in it, and I love pitting the X Men against the Avengers. And some people didn't like it,
That's my fourth one. Yeah.
but I do
Okay.
think a lot comes out of it. I
I'll,
mean, we get
yes.
Namor flooding or Namor flooding
Right.
Wakanda. We get the Phoenix Five. We get like Professor X's death.
Y-
We get the
yes.
mutants coming back through. You know, I guess some people might put House of M as one of their four, but like I don't. I guess
Whoa.
House of M has to be
How
one of
could I
them.
forget that?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I'm
scratch
forced to put
everything.
House of M.
Yeah.
Giant Size X Men #1, House of M, Avengers versus X Men, and then House of X, Powers of X. Like those are the four.
You okay, so you made me okay, so I didn't know we were doing like okay, so you messed me. Okay, so you made me rearrange my whole order.
Yeah,
So
I wanted to
it's
put
definitely
Planet
the
Sized. I wanted to put Planet Sized X
mhm.
Men in there because I think
Mhm.
that is like a
Yeah,
huge
that was a
huge
tipping
shift.
point for them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
but
that's when they started getting like capitals of the solar system is a
yeah,
mutant capitals planet.
yeah.
Like, so now okay, now you made me change my whole order and I hate you for this. It's decimation for sure cuz
Yeah,
that's yeah, that first issue of them coming out of House of M and the kids trying to use their powers, and one tries to fly and or falls almost dies falling off the building. It imprinted in my mind as a child.
Yeah.
But that AVX, because of the death is Professor Xavier, that made me cry. I'm not gonna lie. Um, new ooh, what I don't even know what I put. But no,
You said
the Planet
Genosha?
Size X Men. Yeah, yeah, and Genosha. Yeah,
Yeah.
Planet Size X Men and Genosha. That's it.
Okay.
Oh my God, you made me like reevaluate my life just
I
now, and I
I didn't
appreciate
think of
that.
this question beforehand. I just came up with it. I was like, oh,
I
I
love
mean,
that.
yeah, because I think that
Yes.
like those are the big things, and so for people who want to like catch up to X Men, like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to like do each era, but
Right.
like doing Krakoan Age, like the Krakoan Age stuff is super important, and that's what we're in right now. And what sucks is okay, so the Krakoan Age had multiple little eras or stages or
Yeah.
phases, right? There was Dawn of X, there was Destiny of X,
Mm-hmm.
there was all these things, right? Now it's
Mm-hmm.
Fall of X, which is leading us into essentially the bookend of House of X, Powers of X, which is
Right.
Fall of the House of X, Rise of the Powers of X.
Powers of X. Mhm.
Right. And so let's talk about kind of where Fall of X was leading us into this final thing last month. So yeah, sure, it's February 3rd, 2024, but like we're talking about
Mhm.
January's comics, and then but before that was December's comics, which tied up a lot of plot lines. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna just read out what December had. December had X
Mhm.
Men 29, Invincible Iron Man 13, Alpha Flight 5, X Men Red 18, Dark X Men 5, Wolverine 40, Uncanny Spider Man 5, Uncanny Avengers 5, Astonishing Iceman 5. Then it had the one shot lead in with Original X Men number 1, which leads into
Mhm.
Weapon X Men, which comes out later. Immortal X Men
Yep.
18, X Force 47, and then the end of the Wolverine miniseries, Predator versus Wolverine 4. Um, were you following those series, like all those series?
Oh, religiously. Except for Wolverine and versus Predator.
Okay, it was
But
good. It was
it was okay.
it was
That's good
whatever.
for him.
It was whatever.
I'm not a staunch like Wolverine fan. Like until now, like I'm not like a diehard Wolverine fan, but his stories this in this Krakoan area have been amazing to me, and I love it. Like
Yeah,
honestly, yeah, he's just been like on a and the thing I hate about it sometimes is because I'm like, this is just X-Force, but through Wolverine's perspective in
yeah,
certain comics. And I'm like, in because in the beginning I was like, oh, this is just X-Force. If you want to do this, you just need to make like bi-weekly like issues. But then like the storylines of like coming out of the recent year moments of Beast saying taking him over and cloning him
yeah.
and doing all this stuff like this like and one of the things that I was gonna make and like I made a video about it but I didn't post it because I was like I'm gonna wait.
Uh huh.
I was like, where is I was like, I know Beast is sick right now with the Fall of X, with the Hellfire Gala. Like, I want to see his moments. Like, I hope they do like a flashback of like what he went through, like as that was happening,
Yeah.
or like did he know it was going to happen and just let it happen? Like, there's so many questions that I have for it.
Are you keeping up with X Force right now? Like, did you read this?
Yes.
Okay, so you know kind of
Hmm.
like what Beast is up to right now, which we'll get to. We'll
Oh
get to.
man.
But
Yeah.
December, like Wolverine's storylines were kind of spinning their wheels for a little bit in
Yeah.
December, getting
Yeah.
us to Sabretooth War, which again we'll
Hmm.
talk about. But basically,
Hmm.
like all these series were like these like small mini series were ending in December to kind of
Yep.
like tell a story of how the mutants were on the run throughout multiple series, right?
Right, and, like, where everybody was after the fall of X, kind of,
Yeah.
and, like, I did like that. I thought it was crazy that it's been, like in the universe, it's been, like, 10 months. They are they are expediting the timeline, the
Yeah.
MCU timeline, the Marvel timeline, like, crazy right now,
Yeah.
and, like, I kinda like it because they've also been doing that, they kinda have to keep up with Fantastic Four too because they have their kids they lose their kids for like a year, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of it kind of ties in, and yeah, what they're doing with that is kind of wild. I'm kind of liking it though. Like even like the X-Men Unlimited stories. Like have you been reading the X-Men Unlimited stories on Marvel
No.
Unlimited?
Do I need to? Oh,
Honestly,
some of them are good, right? Isn't there like a
some of them are
there was
actually
like a
dope.
Thunderbird one that came out?
Yes. The recent stories have been about Thunderbird. It's been really good.
I love
Honestly,
Thunderbird.
like I low key do too. Like I didn't. It's been showing him more like because you know what I think? A lot of people idealize him as like, oh, he was this cool guy, like, he didn't deserve to die. But if you read those comics back, he was a jerk. And
Oh, he
like
was.
in this we kind of get the like, oh, the bubble has burst. Like, oh, we remember him as this guy, like we named our plane after him, which is ironic because how
He
he
died
died.
via plane. Yeah.
But like it's like it's funny how when he comes back the bubble automatically bursts and everybody's like, oh yeah, you are a jerk. But I love him for that because he stands in his truth and he like calls people out on their shit. Like
Oh, for
the
sure.
the first moments him get coming out calling giving saying that Professor Xavier has a white savior complex. What? Like who who does this? Like and
Yeah.
like even the moment of the Banshee and him seeing each other, and you can kind of tell he's a person out of time because of the things he says to Banshee is like, okay, I don't think you can kind of say that now. It's 2020, 2023, guys. Come on,
Yeah.
man. Oh, and I love his stories, but honestly, the X-Men Unlimited stories though,
They're
I
worth it.
think
I need to catch
I
up, is
think
what you're
they're worth
saying?
it. Honestly, I would like it depends. If you're a person, I like sometimes like a slice of life moment, and I also like a moment where we kind of get into relationships of characters, and that's where X-Men Unlimited comes into because they also have great stories. Like they show what's been going on with Sunfire, and because if you remember in X of Sword, he's on his mission of trying to find Red Root
Right.
and X-Men Unlimited shows the story of like what he has to do to get to it, and like it shows him fighting Moira X, like going through everything, and like him how he got merged with Red Root now, and how they have to stay merged or they'll die. Like it's
And there's something to do with like Apocalypse, right?
yes. Damn. Was he in that? There was a moment where he is in it. But they do a lot of other things. Like they were the first ones to talk about what happens when you resurrect somebody who is still alive. Like they start answering those questions. And there's a story with Maggot. And he dies in a mission, but one of his worms is still alive and they don't
Oh.
know that it's alive. So they resurrect both of all of them, but his new maggot is still feeling bad, but it doesn't know why. Now the old maggot is out there somewhere and is sensing it and is trying to eat the other one. And like
Oh.
it kind of like yeah, it's a whole little moment like of what happens, what would they do, and it shows like they say like the soul is split or something like that. It was crazy. It's a wild moment.
I
And
mean,
yeah.
people don't realize that like there's the whole resurrection protocols with the X-Men that
Yep.
like with Krakoan Age that when X-Men die, they can essentially their last like mind upload will then just get
Right.
uploaded to a new
Come
clone
back.
body. Um
Right.
did you like
And
that?
I, you know what? I do like the fact that I did like the moment of, we can bring them back to life. But not gonna hold you. The whole like first few months of that, I was just like, nah. For the first year, I was just like, oh my god, what if these are just the clones of these people,
Right.
and we are just seeing and more as they whatever they're gonna get different, and then we're just gonna realize, oh, the people that we know are already dead. That was my whole. I went into a loop like for that for a moment, but then as they like slowly start explaining what goes on as it happens, and I think it was the X-Men Red issue. I don't remember which one it was, that one or a sword, but when Magneto explains the resurrection to the great ring
Uh-huh.
of how the soul how it brings the mind back to it, it brings it brings the mind back, and then the soul senses the self and comes back to the
Mm.
body. And like it, I was like, I was like, that was deep as hell. And also I was like, okay, so you are the people that you do, and you are the people that you say you are, and
The
your
real
soul just
people with the souls, because that's what people were afraid
right,
of, right?
exactly. That was, yeah, that was the whole moment. That was the whole thing. People were scared that the souls weren't there, that like they were just making new people essentially with their memories.
Yeah.
And I love that they took the time to sit there and explain that it slowly as they go on, because even like they show what happens when you resurrect somebody, but the only good alternative that came out of that was Laura and Talon.
Right. And I mean, they're
I
going through stuff, right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, yeah, I mean, because we've touched on it a little bit.
Oh,
What's
can
going
we?
on right now this month? Um,
Yes.
the comics that came out this month follow the House of X #1, Rise of the
Hmm.
Powers of X
Hmm.
um
Number one.
number
Yeah.
one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The next one's coming out next week. I can't wait for that.
Yeah. We got 2 issues of Wolverine per month is
Hmm.
something that we're doing right now for some
That's what we're
reason.
doing. That's what's happening.
Um, so we had Wolverine 41 and Wolverine 42, which is Sabretooth War, which I've actually been liking. Um,
Yeah. That last issue of that 41 issue, that messed me up.
with Dakin ripped apart.
What? Reading birthday to his shot to his father?
Yeah,
That I I didn't know. I knew something was going to happen. We'll talk about it.
it's gross. X-Men 30 is this issue with Sync and Talon and the High Evolutionary and a couple
Hmm.
other storylines that are kind of like trying to wrap up, which is really weird
Hmm.
because then they just introduced Cable #1. They started a new
Yeah.
series with Cable, and so
Right.
X. So then there's also Dead X-Men #1, and then there's X Force
Hmm.
48 and Resurrection of Magneto #1. And quick question: did you read Black Panther #8 that had Monet in it?
I have not read it yet.
Okay, I didn't because I'm behind on Black Panther, but I wanted
Yeah,
to
that's
see
why I didn't
like
read it yet.
what's Monet doing there? Like what's the
She has
purpose?
business from her family. I mean,
Mm,
she has to go into Wakanda, but that's all I know about it,
okay,
and I need to read it.
because people don't realize Monet is Moroccan, right? So
Yeah,
she's at
she's
least
a whole bunch
African,
of things.
you know?
Right.
But like what is going on there? I don't know. Okay,
Right.
so tell me out of these series, like what's standing out to you? What's going down right now in January?
Ooh. So of course, the rise of X and the rise of the powers of X and the fall of the House of X,
Yes.
those are definitely standing out to me.
I'm trying
X
to remember
Men,
what's been going on in each, because each of them are
yeah,
concurrent stories that are
right. I love it because it kind of they kind of bring it full circle moment, because these issues mirror what happened in the House of X, Powers of X.
yes.
Like it kind of just like, well, it doesn't mirror the situation, but it mirrors the way it tells the story. It mirrors it, and I kind of love that you like finish off how you started. But yeah, like it kind of those are the ones that standing out to me though right now. I think I'm gonna like I've never been a Cable fan, but Cable's been having good stories lately, so we're gonna
Yeah.
see what happens. But Immortal X-Men, I know that's coming to an end soon, but I'm just that if that is was that the last issue, or is it gonna keep, or do they have a few more issues left?
There wasn't
Or are
Immortal
they gonna go
X-Men
into
this
X-Men Forever?
there wasn't an there wasn't an Immortal X-Men this month.
No,
There was one last month and there
right.
oh. Um from what I've seen there's no Immortal X-Men in February. Is Immortal X-Men done?
I don't know. I know it's coming to an end though. Like I saw one of the preview books. I saw, and one of them said, as Immortal X-Men comes to an end, and I'm like, oh no, that's my favorite book right now, and I hate that. But I figure all of them are coming to an end at some point. Those that one and X-Men Red have been my favorite books, since like the creation. Of course, before it was Sword. And I miss them doing more Sword stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Sword kind of
and I
turned into X-Men Red, right? So
yeah,
but
but
like
I mean the
I did
actual
like that
sword
Sword
stuff.
series.
Yeah, like the whole I like the intergalactic diplomatic stuff. Like
Yeah.
I love me a political book, and I that's why I love Immortal X-Men so much, because they go into the politics of like the building of their nation, but also the drama of it all. And that's what X-Men is. X-Men is just drama, high key drama, and we love it.
Yeah.
And like you have high key drama all over the council, like, Sinister sitting next to Exodus, sitting next to Mystique, like Sebastian Shaw sitting next to Emma Frost, sitting next to Kitty Pryde, like all of these people. And if you think about, all of these people have been, especially when you think of like Sebastian Shaw sitting next to Emma Frost and
Yeah.
a Kitty Pryde, that whole dynamic has been amazing. Like
Yeah.
the stories that have come out of this have been,
The Krakoan Age stories, the amazing thing about like bad guys and good guys having to work together for the
yes,
betterment of their species, while also
yes,
there are other storylines where bad guys, first things first, the resurrection protocols change things. They get to
forever.
bring dead people back to life, and then
Hmm.
like do the dead people forgive those who um who have
Who wronged you?
killed them, right?
Yeah,
So like
right,
the question is, in real life, when somebody dies and somebody gives forgiveness to their killer, like the family
right,
member, like I don't understand that, me personally.
right,
Like somebody kills my family members, they're never getting forgiveness. Like they're
right.
lucky if they don't get worse from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like,
Like
and like it depends on, of course it depends, for me it depends on the situation. Of course, if you are like a mutant who can't control your powers
right.
and you whatever, cool. But like if you're somebody like, a saber tooth, or like, a Mr. Sinister who enjoys doing these things, then yeah, like how can I, it did raise the question of how can I live with somebody who has done these things, because like there are people who are living with apocalypse, like Gambit has to sit there with Apocalypse being on a council, and after what he did, like Angel has to sit there
Yeah.
knowing after like all the things that he's done with his life. And I love that it poses that question of what do we do when we're trying to build a nation for ourselves, but we, because I mean we know that the outside isn't going to do it, so we can only govern and try to do work with what we got.
Yeah.
And I did like the moment of them saying like, okay, yes, we can, let's put our stuff aside and be like, okay, let's chill. Let's just, be here
Yeah.
and handle that moment. Like, we get moments like that in Legion of X where, um, what's his name? Fabian
Oh,
fights, old girl,
yeah.
and we have to go through that moment of like what he did to her. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It
Um
asks a lot of questions.
we get a lot of also like villains that realize, because in real life, like sometimes people do bad things based off of the events in their life, right? Like like we are beholden to the event, our events and experiences that we've
Right.
like good things happen to you, you tend to end up better. Bad things happen to
Yeah,
you, you tend to end up worse. That's just generally
exactly.
speaking. But like
Right.
with the resurrection protocols and the fact that like technically people can live forever. That's what they thought.
Yep.
Um,
Right.
a character like Grey Crow was able to find happiness
Yeah.
even though he massacred a bunch of people. You know?
Right. Right. And that's why, and I like Hellions for that, because it posed the question of what do you do with these people who aren't necessarily bad, but their mutation has turned them to be bad, or has caused them to act in such a way. Like empath being one of the main ones, of course. Like because of his powers of being able to control others, he can't empathize with people in the way that normal people can, and that
Yeah,
is what also makes him ironic, him being an empath. And
yeah,
like, what's his name? Wild Child. Like,
yeah.
was it Wild Child or Wild Thing? Wild Child. Yeah,
Wild Child. Yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, because I mean, it also like the Hellions book brought up like, sure, we can forgive and forget, tabula rasa, clean slate, but also are some of these people capable of having clean slates? Can
right.
can they? I mean, or do they have problems that just like empath
Can't be
being like a
fixed.
narcissist, a sociopath? You know,
Right.
it's like, can that be fixable? Should that be fixable? I don't know. Like the
Exactly.
Krakoan Age brought up a lot of questions. The Krakoan Age also
Yeah.
like was like with Madeline Pryor, is
Oh my
she
gosh.
evil? Is she not?
Right.
Is, you know?
Is she just a victim of her circumstance? And like that, and that's the thing that like we kind of they kind of before they've never talked about, and I think that has a part in a larger part to do with fans who like liked her and just didn't who understood like this was just a woman who is a victim of what she's been through. Like she's a woman who just found out she's a clone of this woman of the of the woman who your husband is still in love with who died,
Yeah.
and then on top of that you are just here to be an incubator basically for this man to have this other guy's baby,
Yeah.
and then on top of that your baby gets taken away by demons, and then you find out that your husband isn't dead, but he's also shacking up with his ex-girlfriend
Who
who
is
you
also
thought
you,
was dead.
like it's your
Right, who's also
sister,
you.
right? In a way.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's your
Exactly.
twin. It's your like long lost twin. So like
Right.
I think
Like
what's been really nice about comics and the comics fandom is that
mhm.
a lot of writers start off as fans of what they're writing, right? Like a lot of
Right.
writers
Mhm.
do, and over time they become maybe less of a fan and more of an architect
Right.
of these stories. But the point being is like they had to start from somewhere, and there's a discourse that has popped up since the invention of the internet that allows us to look back and at these characters that
Right.
have done bad things or whatnot and realized who is the victim here, who is the actual transgressor,
Yes.
a character like Hank Pym,
Mhm.
like like uh, is he salvageable, is he redeemable, can't
Right.
like off that one thing, and I think he
Yeah.
is. I think that they have to tackle
Yeah.
exactly what's going on, but because of this discourse it's allowed us to take a
They
look
have
at
to do
like
it
these
right.
X-Men characters and be like, well, is Madeline
Can
Pryor
we
like, it's the same thing of like, is Magneto a bad guy? Yes, he is.
right.
He is.
Has he not done horrible things? Of course,
Yeah.
but you can understand why he did it, and
Right.
like I think that's what makes honestly I think that's what also makes X-Men so good too because of their villains. Like with most of their villains, you understand or you get how they got to where they are and why they're doing it. Because when most of them, they're doing it for the right reasons, but they're just going about it in a horrible way. So you kind of just have to be like, okay, well, I get it, but also, chill, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely one of those moments. That's why I think they have such staying power, also because of the understandability. Like, if that is even that's not even a word, and I'm making it up on the spot. It's
Yeah,
okay.
it's the
Like,
relatability of these characters and
relatability.
their
That's it.
struggles. And even if
Exactly.
they aren't relatable, fans and then writers make them relatable, right? Like
Yes.
Madeline Pryor was essentially just a plot device to give
Yeah.
this kid to push things forward,
Right.
like sure, but then as fans we're like, well, what about her actually as a person? And then the
What about
writers
her
are like,
autonomy?
you're right.
Exactly.
What about her as an actual person? Like how can we tell
Right.
stories from this point? Like
Exactly.
Omega Red is on the X-Force team, you know?
They made us understand why Omega Red is Omega Red,
Right.
and like it perfectly makes sense. Like if you are a person who is made to just like suck people's energy, of course that's how you're going to be. Like they've even like personalized people like Celine, like
Yeah.
like
Well, Celine's
so
still evil. Like,
she's still evil. Like
yeah.
she's let's be real. There are people who just want to evil, like evil
Yeah.
going evil. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that. That's just how some are. And like, but you understand. You kind of understand with if you someone made a point to said if you spend your whole life, if you grow up and the first thing you remember is you literally absorbing your mother and you just and people literally serving people to you, of course you're gonna see people as
Right.
food. Like
Right.
like and some
It's
of the
like
people you get it.
dog fights. Like they make a
Yeah.
dog do those things.
Right.
You're torturing
So one day become
somebody
vicious.
to be a torturer. You know,
Right, exactly.
and so like, what do you like? The character like Destiny?
Hmm.
Destiny has been a villain this whole time, Mystique too, and like we've seen nuance with their characters through this age.
Yes.
You know?
Right, like, and they do horrible shit, but they do it for the betterment of mutant kind.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I want to give a quick
and that's
rundown of where we are
oh
in
yeah.
the X-Men stories. So,
Okay.
Fall of the House of X is dealing with Cyclops's um, execution. They're the
Right.
the bad
The
guys, which are
trial.
Orcus.
Hmm.
Orcus orchestrated this whole thing. They're mutant. They're anti-mutant group, but they're more than just dumb neo Nazis. They are
Right.
scientists and manipulators and whatnot. Modoc, Doctor Stasis, Moira, Nimrod, Karima, the Omega Sentinel.
Hmm.
There are like it's a conglomerate of like really bad
Right.
people.
Like even Vulture is in on
Yeah,
it now.
yeah. Well, Vulture was a scientist for Orcus, but he got taken down in Uncanny Spider-Man #5.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, and so like, so that's going on with Fall of the House of X, and then
Hmm.
the X-Men are leading a squad to save Cyclops from his execution in France.
Hmm.
In that, uh Rasputin the fourth or fifth,
Four.
fourth.
Four.
Okay,
Hmm.
Rasputin the fourth comes in and then has to
That's
leave
my
because
girl.
Professor X calls her out, right?
Right.
And they're like, "What is
Hmm.
going on?"
Doesn't say
The,
why.
yeah, but then we see in Rise of the Powers of X, um, that takes place in an alternate future, which had some really cool parts that that
Yeah.
Rasputin is being sent into alternate futures to gather information to then hopefully kill Moira in the past.
Hmm.
But they need the proper
Yeah.
information.
Right. We find out that they have control of his of Sinister's engines. My thing is how do they still remember it? But they've I mean, if Sinister modified it, I'm sure they can find a way to modify him
Right.
as well. So like and I kind of like how now they have to use Sinister's own plan of trying to restart Sinister. We kind of get a sense of Sinister again, but with Xavier
Yeah.
as the head of it.
Yeah.
And like I kind of like to see where this moment is going. And I kind of can see what's about to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like I know what's about to happen, but
Hold
I
that
don't
thought.
like.
Hold that thought
Yeah, I'm
about
gonna
what's
wait.
about to
Yeah, I'm gonna
happen.
wait. I'm gonna wait till the end. Yeah,
Give
I
me a
got
second.
you.
I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna be right back.
Oh yeah, I got you. Ooh, guys, it is gonna be. X Men is gonna be so good. It's just gonna like. Who's reading the X-Men? That's my little cousin.
All right. Sorry about that. All right.
No, y'all good.
So what do you think is gonna happen?
Okay, so
And by the way, this
the
ties in
way.
with Dead X-Men #1.
Oh yeah, I read that. I read that the day it came out. When I tell you I went on my lunch break and
Yeah.
I went home, I went there and I got it. I was like, yeah. because there's no way I wasn't gonna read about my people. I was waiting, and then they said Rachel was gonna be in it. I had no idea she was gonna be in it until I saw her, and I was like, oh yes, my favorite summers. Like, oh, this is gonna be it.
I
But
still am a little confused on what happened there, but sorry, continue
yeah.
with your idea
Oh
of what's
no,
going
no,
to
no,
happen.
for sure. I'm definitely confused on how they like. You mean how they got back and
Yeah,
like
they mentioned that they used eggs, so maybe they just had a couple more eggs that they could
right? Maybe
use.
it's left. They had left over because like the way I mean, somebody has to have has to have a cradle somewhere, right? Like cerebro somewhere, right? Like
Yeah,
and so yeah, I don't know,
they
but
did.
okay,
They
this is my
resurrected
theory.
them, so I don't know.
Yeah, so right, they had to be brought back somehow. But this is my theory. So the way they're talking about it, like Xavier's doing this whole process of trying to see what will work going forward with
Yeah.
Krakoa's experiment. So I feel like they're going to try to find a way to. I feel like they're trying to find a way to kill Moira, but still, of as we saw in Dead X Men, still find a way to give Xavier what he needs so that Krakoa can exist. I feel like they're going to try to find a way to reboot Krakoa
Uh huh.
in a way that like brings them back, but they have some kind of fighting chance. But it's going to be a different Krakoa than what we know it as. But I
You
feel like
think?
it's
Do
going to
you think they're
be.
gonna rewrite time? I hope not.
I feel like that.
It
I
wouldn't make
kind of
any
feel like they
sense.
will.
All the Marvel comics and everything that took place since 2019 have tied
Yeah,
in with this.
that
So
involved with them, right?
I don't know if they're gonna rewrite the timeline.
See, that's what but the way they're doing these little these Moira engines, I was like, something's going to be rewritten or something because they said that they're going to have some kind of like the X-Men are going to be okay after this. So hopefully, I don't know how they're how they're going to play this one out
I don't know.
because this is we're seeing a current Days of Future Past storyline basically happen with these Moira engines and like with them like resetting everything because at one point it looked like what was confusing me was it looked like they were going to the past before with the Mora, but then I read it more and I was like, oh, they're using the Mora engines to just go to different to just restart the time over again
Mhm.
because but yeah, the little moment of seeing Smasher, the little future
Yeah,
Smasher kid, I love that moment. I because as soon as I saw him, I was like, "Oh my god, I know who that is." I instantly saw it.
yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, that's your son."
But that son doesn't. Does that son exist? Does Sam Guthrie have a
Hmm.
child right
Oh
now?
yeah,
Okay, but
yeah.
he's on
That's why he
Chandelar,
lives in.
right?
Yeah, that's why he lives in Chandelier. He lives with Chandelier with his wife Smasher. They had a kid. They had a kid since like they were in the Avengers.
Didn't they meet on the Avengers though?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
they had a kid right after that. They left the event. They left the team to because she got pregnant.
You ever think? You ever think to yourself that and I don't know what's going on with you personally, but
Mhm.
like, what if your soulmate is an alien? You know what I mean? Like,
Dude, right?
what it like Sam Guthrie, a lot of his storylines aren't about dating, but like he's
Mhm.
dated a couple people, right? Did he date
Right.
Moonstar? Did he date
No, they
no?
had this will they won't they thing, but
Okay.
they never dated.
I don't
No.
remember who Sam has dated, but the point.
He's dated Lila Cheney.
Okay.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
He dated a few aliens actually. I think there was another alien there. And he dated what's her name? What's her name? Who we know now, Serafina. One of the future people on the Children of Tomorrow.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
Serafina?
Yeah.
Yeah, they dated like in her like beginning of it, like they dated when she came to like the real world for a little bit,
Yeah.
but like she was just using him or whatever, and
Oh.
like yeah, they had like a whole life together, and then like it had a kid, and then it was a lie. Yeah,
Oh.
it was a whole
Uh
thing.
it's just interesting that he has to meet. I mean, she's not an alien.
Yeah,
She's human, but she is
right.
part
But
of the
the
Imperial,
Shi'ar
the Shi'ar
Imperial
Imperial
Guard.
Guard, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
So the fact is that like this guy moved like planets, galaxies.
planets.
You know?
Right. And let's talk about a king. Like, guys, like, that's talk about a progressive king. Because this man said, no, my wife has a real job. I'm going to go move with her. And is not only doing that, but staying home and taking care of his son for while she goes out and does Imperial Guard shit. That's a man, y'all. And we just stand on Cannonball. He's a king, man. We
Here's the
love
thing.
it.
Here's the thing. Let's talk about X-Men and having just very strong female characters,
Yes.
as well as just obliterating gender roles, right? Like
Yes.
is Cyclops
Let's
doesn't go up to
talk
Jean
about it.
Grey. Cyclops doesn't go up to Jean Grey and go, Jean Grey, you're staying at home while I go work. Like that never
Right.
happens. Why? Because you're
Hmm.
gonna get telekinetically bitch slapped. That's just what's
Right.
gonna happen. You know? And
Right.
like we see this with Rogue and Gambit. Like
Hmm.
Rogue is stronger than Gambit. She just is.
Yeah.
She's more
Right.
powerful.
And most of them are.
You know, most
Right.
of the
That's
women in X Men, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
They have all the coolest powers, and I love that I love that they do that. Like, one thing someone said, I watch a X Men podcast called Cerebrocast, and
yeah,
there is a moment he talks about Scott, how his father like Vision Scott, and as soon as he said, I was like, this is amazing because I that's all I see. They talk about basically Scott is the main character. Everybody thinks of Scott as the main character, but as the story goes on, you realize, and Scott also comes to realize that Jean Grey has been the main character this whole time, and we've just been watching the main character grow through Scott's eyes in most cases.
yeah,
And I love that fact because that's kind of exactly what it is. Because like the way, and that's why X Men worked so bad, especially back then, because they it gave us feminism without us realizing, oh, this is a lot of feminine power that's happening in behind the scenes,
yeah,
because they give us cool characters like Wolverine and Colossus and Scott Summers, of course. But then how they do it is the stories don't move forward. Big stories in the X-Men don't move forward unless it's with one of the big women characters. Like a lot of like Jean Grey story, like the Dark Phoenix propelled them in a way that would have never happened if if not for Jean Grey. Like
right.
there are stories like, they need these women to be the strong person, the supportive backbone. Of course, that's what most women have been in the background, but I love that they kind of extenuate, kind of
Insinuate.
capitalize on,
Oh, okay.
yeah, extenuate. That's the word. I can never say that word. Thank you. But yeah, I love how they extenuate like just the women and they how they stand in their truth. And that's why we love Chris Claremont,
Yeah,
honestly, because Chris Claremont never shied away from making strong women, not just the woman behind the man. You know
right.
what I mean?
I believe Chris Claremont stated that like somebody asked him like, why aren't they just men? These characters that you create, and he's like,
Right.
look at it from the other side. Like, do they have a reason to be a man? No. Then let's make a female. Like, why
Right.
not?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Like Storm wasn't even intended to be like Storm's powers, that was intended to be for a man's powers, like for DC. But he was like,
Mm,
why not be a black woman? Like, why not be the black, and he just made the black Catwoman for her to be the X-Men. But he was like, why not make her the Weather Witch? Like, and that's the thing, like the all if mostly every single woman that has been on the X-Men is a dynamic woman with so many layers to her. Like she doesn't have to be just the soft spoken. And some people have written them as especially like people like Jean Grey. Some people miss her as just like the docile person behind,
right.
behind Scott, and she's like, oh, I faint at like at my own power. Like, we've most of us have seen the cartoon. We know, like, she faints at the strength of her own power, kind of thing.
That's the one
But
bad thing about the cartoon. The
yeah,
cartoon didn't show us that the women were more
her and
powerful than the
Storm.
men. You
Yes,
know?
they did her and Storm wrong, and I hated that.
I mean,
Like
Storm
the
got better play than Jean Grey in the cartoon, right?
Sometimes, but no, only but when Storm had like big power moments, like when she was trying to do like big power moments like Jean does, like she like, oh no, I can control it, the winds,
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay, calm down, guys. Like
yeah,
she talks to the winds, like, like it communicates with her. Like, sometimes she does lose control, but not like that. Like, y'all are capping out. Come
Yeah.
on. Come on.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, but like we realize that like so many amazingly strong characters. Um
Hmm.
um with where X-Men is going right now. Oh, did you read X-Force 48?
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
so Beast for a long time has been bad and slipping. Like he hasn't been outright evil up until recently, but like he's been morally gray for a very long time. And so what they've done is now we have a completely evil Beast, but then now they've brought back a clone of Beast that has a previous um memory the memory the like the mind backup
Yeah.
from his time in the Avengers when he was
Yes.
Happy Beast. So
Right.
now we have like past Beast, which
Right.
are Beast back then. If we were saying like X-Men's been around like 15 years, this was around, I would say, like 8 years ago. Like, right? Like, would you think it was like his time is like roughly halfway back,
Okay.
or maybe
So
even in the beginning, like 5 years?
I would I would
Like,
give him like I would give this like probably like year 10 maybe. No, I would probably like 8 years. Like eight years sound about right because I feel like he was at least he was has to be an adult before he when he's on the Avengers, but I feel like he's like a fresh adult. Like he's probably like what 20
this is
maybe
around the
like
time
when he
of
first
like
gets
Giant
there.
Size X-Men #1 because he remember
Yeah,
he gets saved there and then he leaves.
right.
And then it's
Right, and then he
very shortly
joins them.
afterwards that he joins the Avengers.
Right. And I feel like they're like Gene and them are like probably like what 21-ish
Yeah.
because they're drinking at this point, so they're like 21, 22. So like I
And look,
feel like
if I was a mutant and I was on the X-Men, like I don't care about human laws. I'm gonna underage drink.
I'm gonna underage it. Right, my
Look,
life
I
is
am
hard
gonna
enough.
party
I'm
as
gonna
a
drink.
mutant. I'm not gonna party with your
Right,
human laws. I'm
right.
a
I'm
mutant party.
sorry. You're calling me by my human name.
Yeah,
All
that
right,
is
my
my
mutant
human
name is
age.
Gazer Beam, bitch.
Can you
Right.
imagine getting stopped? Can you imagine getting stopped by a cop and be like, "My human age is 18, but I'm a mutant. I'm a mutant 25, baby.
Do you
I'm
know how
gonna
many times I've
drink."
been resurrected? All right, get out of here.
You go to rent a car, the humans over there, they're like, sir, you're 18, you can't rent a car. It's like, my human
It's
age is
fine.
18, but I'm a
My mutant
mutant. I'm
age.
25. Give me that car.
Right? I feel like as soon as you're a mutant, you should be aged up like 5 years.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like
like,
they've gone through so much trauma up until that point.
oh my God, right? Like there's barely a mutant that has gone through any trauma. Like and Kamala Khan is finding that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Like she has barely been a mutant for like 7 minutes, and everybody is turning on her like crazy right now. Like, and I can't wait for the next for her new series, the Mutant Menace one to come out.
Yeah.
Because they already they're like her people are gonna turn on her, and I'm like, oh, I'm waiting for this. I was like, oh, people are like, oh, you a mutant. Like, and that's what's crazy to me about mutant racism in Marvel because y'all have so many other things to worry about, but mutants are what y'all like is the cross you want to die on.
Yeah.
Like the people who are literally like there are people with alien powers. Like y'all, there are people who have been modified by science. Y'all hate science. Like the people who go up into a stink about these things, they're the people who are like, science can't cure me, God can. And like I feel like that's one of those moments I'm like, this is literally like your planet's evolutionary scale. Like, if you believe in evolution, you should be cool with the mutants. Like, that's
Right.
the one thing I'm
But then
like,
there's a
and there are
problem.
scientists who are against them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But like the science, uh, we've talked. I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but like people always ask, why do the humans of the Marvel universe like Captain
Yeah,
America? Why do they?
hmm
Why are they cool with Captain America and
yeah,
cool with
that's
like,
always the question.
but not cool with X-Men? Like,
Hmm.
but the difference is that X-Men are the next evolutionary like step of the ladder, and
Right,
it really ties into kind of what they do here in the real world. They shall not replace us.
right.
Humans are
Hmm.
very upset that not only that science is saying that like mutants are the next step, but that mutants believe they're the next step,
The
and
next
that
step,
makes
yeah.
humans inferior. So thus,
Mhm.
it's kind of like this. It's like you're like when people get into like a fight, and it's like, oh, you think you're the big man, like you're bigger and stronger than me? Well, I have
Right.
a gun. So like,
Right.
so humans are going to be using their tools like their guns, or picking
Right.
on mutants that are kids and killing them,
Mhm.
or creating sentinels, like doing what humans do
Mhm.
to bridge that gap of like, yes, they are
Right.
inferior, right?
And I think that's what makes it also more. I think another thing that makes it also scarier for them is because it could be anybody. Like I think that's the thing. Because there was a there's this little poster they did in like the early 2000s of like the picture of his like wanted like human then mutant then human, and it was like Franklin Richards on it.
Uh-huh.
um yeah, but yeah, it's like it could be, it's the fear that it could be anybody. It could even turn out to be your children as well.
You're talking about that
And
that
I
picture.
think
It's like, do you know where what your child is or whatever?
yes, 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 yes,
It's
yes.
a play on, do you know where your child is?
Where your children? Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
but then it's
exactly.
like, what, do you know what your children
What
are
your
or something
child
like that?
is?
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Then
that was
and
for the
I
Mutant Registration Act back in the day.
yeah, right. And that always stood out to me for some reason. They don't do comics like they used to back in the day. Can we just like talk about like they like the
It's
promotion they used to
1990
come out for
it's
comics is
Yeah, it's
crazy.
1987. Do you know what your children are? Instead of do
Damn,
you
I
know
didn't know it was
where your
that long
children
ago.
are, do you know what your children are?
What your children are.
And like, it's it's
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Paid for
And
by
that's
the
Franklin
citizens
Richards.
in support of the Mutant Registration Act.
Yep.
I don't think
Oof.
that's Franklin
See,
Richards, because Franklin Richards declared a mutant to the public? I
back
don't
then,
think so.
yeah. No, no, no,
Really?
no. But back then, no, no, no. I think that's just like a. I think that was just for like us, like
Oh,
we
okay.
know who that is. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, this because I think they there was the person who drew it was like they that was supposed to be Franklin,
Okay, okay.
and
So,
um,
I mean,
but yeah,
X-Men. I love the things that X-Men do. You know, the stories that they
yes,
tell us. You know.
yes,
Oh, I looked it up, by the way. So Giant Size
mhm,
X-Men was in 1975. Beast joins the Avengers in 1975, which means right
okay,
when he leaves the X-Men, he joins the Avengers.
he joins them.
Which
Hmm.
means this Beast is probably 21, 22.
Yeah, I would say yeah, that sounds
Maybe
about
add a
right.
couple years because he was on the
Maybe
Avengers for a little bit of time, but like he's
right,
roughly 21 to 24.
okay,
Like
because
this is
I feel like
young
this is
Beast.
for some reason I feel like this is like isn't this like West Coast Avengers Beast? Like, when he
Uh
was on no, was one which one team was he on when he was with,
Wonder
Wonder
Man.
Man?
Let's
Yeah,
let's I think, I mean, it could be um mm, it's probably West Coast Avengers,
okay.
but how long is Beast with it? That's why I'm saying like maybe 24, you know?
Right.
So maybe it's about 8 years, like 8 years ago, 9 years
Yeah,
ago, maybe 10 years ago.
because I feel like they have I feel like he doesn't lead them until, like, they have, like, solid years together. Like, the minimum, like, because they were 15, I feel like maybe, like, 5 years in. 5 years at least.
Okay. So, yeah. Yeah. So, uh, we're still dealing with a pretty young beast that's, you know. Oh, by the way, just with the sliding Marvel timeline, that like people don't realize is that like Marvel issues, although that like these stories have been written in the 60s,
Right.
that with the modern Marvel timeline, it slides.
Yeah.
So big events like Reed Richards was like fought in World War II, but he no longer fights in World War II because that wouldn't make any sense. The Punisher fought in Vietnam, but nowadays he's not a Vietnam War vet.
Right.
He is an
Right.
Afghanistan war
Um,
vet or an Iraq war
Karma
vet.
from Karma is a refugee, like, like, as a
Yeah,
Vietnam refugee.
but like they shift it, you know, and they try
Yeah.
to make it work, and they retcon it with this sliding timeline.
Right.
what's interesting is that like Captain America didn't get thawed out of the ice until after September 11th.
Yeah,
Like there
that's
were
what we're
there
gonna have.
the modern
There
Marvel
there are
age.
stories of them. Yeah, like that the Nuff said comic.
No, I know, but like with the sliding timeline, that technically isn't exactly what happened. It isn't.
I feel I feel like it probably would have happened. He would have had to, because there are literal comics of him like having to like see do that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but with the sliding timeline, it
true,
shifts. There are
touche.
comics
You
there are
right.
comics where like the Avengers meet Richard Nixon, but like
You know what? Facts. You know
you know
what?
what I mean?
Facts. You know what? Yeah, you right. You right.
Like
Okay.
the
Yeah, touche.
big things shift. Like
Yeah.
there was a comic where Spider-Man meets the original cast of of SNL, and so like, but that doesn't factor in anymore. It
Right.
just doesn't, and
Exactly.
like you can't with a sliding timeline. So truth be
Right.
told, the modern, and they don't really touch on it because it's people don't want to say that like yeah the stories that you read 20 years ago don't technically count or that it doesn't matter anymore, but like
Mhm.
if we're saying the X-Men have been around for 15 years, that means the modern age of Marvel started after September 11th 2001, because that was
True.
22 years ago, 23 years ago. Like
Yeah.
the modern Marvel age has not been around, the heroes have not been around for 23 years.
Right.
You could say
Right.
they've been around
Well,
15, 17 years, but they haven't been around for that much. And Captain America's not even a founding member of the Avengers. So,
touche.
you know,
Yeah.
so keep that in mind. Like, I think it's crazier to think, yeah, Captain America got thawed out of the ice into this shitstorm, which is the George Bush era presidency. Like, that's funnier. That is like, he gets thawed out of ice and he's like, holy shit, this is the way the world is now.
Like, yeah, like people, I just wish I was there to see his face when like he saw the world. Like, I know it was funny. Like,
Yeah.
just seeing Nick Fury, like that's why I did like the Ultimates, because the Ultimates version of him seeing Nick Fury as the head of thing, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is hilarious.
I mean, yes, Ultimate Captain America was not nice though. So like it
I feel
was
like he was nice. He
it was
still was nice. He just
satirical. Like
he
there was
had
a
a
satire.
he wasn't afraid to kill people for sure. Like, I
No,
think that was the one thing.
more than
But I
that.
did like his moment because like he knew how to treat women and everything, especially with like when him and Janet were like dating.
Yes and no. Like being nice to women is one thing, but allowing women to make their own decisions, this Ultimate Captain America did
Ooh,
not allow. Like he was not about that life. He was very strict gender roles, my way or the highway sort of thing. Like sure he beat up Giant Man and all that, and like that needed to happen, sure, but
for
like
sure.
Ultimate Captain America was Mark Miller, who is Scottish, his parody of America. Like, what if America was a
Yeah.
person? You know?
Hmm.
Whereas Captain America of the 616 Marvel Universe, the comics, is what if the American dream was a person?
Right, was a person. Yeah,
And that's kind of the
very much
difference. Because
so.
the American dream is equality of all people, the freedom of
Hmm.
choice, the idea that like we
Right.
can be bigger and better as human beings if
Yes.
we just work together. But the ultimate Captain America was no, this is post September 11th America. This was,
Hmm.
and that time period was wild. Gen Z
For
doesn't
some
realize
reason,
that.
I know he cried when he heard about it. Like, when he heard about 9/11, he probably just did like a single tear. Like,
Yeah,
he
the
seems to have
ultimate
picture of it.
version. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was wild, but like anyway, the sliding time scale is weird with these
Yeah.
with these with these guys. So much. I mean, and I think that's also the thing about the Marvel universe is that like you know how like in real life like boomers get very upset that like life is changing way too fast for them.
Yeah.
So that's in real life. Imagine in the Marvel
Hmm.
universe where people are like, "What? I can't say mutie anymore."
Yes. Right?
Like,
Oh,
or people being like, "Do we like Spider-Man? Do we not like Spider-Man?" think about this. Like, imagine like real world canceling, but with Spider-Man.
Right.
Like I thought we canceled Spider-Man. Oh no, we're cool with
Right.
Spider-Man now. Is he? And then there's gonna be people being like, I actually kind of like Spider-Man, but I'm not gonna tell people. And then there's
Right.
other people like, no, like boo Spider-Man. You know, I don't know. It's just crazy to like kind of so
Right.
much has
And
changed. So much has changed for these
I
citizens
may
in 15 years.
right. And I may be ignorant, but I always think somebody is like, oh, with the mutie thing, I'm like, is there somebody saying, "Hey, what's up, my mutie?" Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I want that for somebody. I don't know why.
Well,
Hey,
like in X-Men comics, they do come up with slang that is like just for mutants, right? So like
right.
they call humans flat scans.
Ho-
That's a
Yes.
you know?
Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I'm back.
No, no, no worries. Um what were we saying? Oh, what were you
Um.
said something like
Did I?
I want to shout out a couple people who have been
Oh
answering
yeah.
stuff on our Instagram story. Um,
Hey.
because I posted a question on the Instagram story on like what
Mm-hmm.
people's favorite X characters are, right?
Ooh. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Uncanny Ken says Magic,
Ooh.
Ilyana
Yes.
Rasputin,
She's on
who
mine too. Yeah.
in my opinion, okay, I like Ilyana Magic,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like the abundance of the concept of magic in mutantdom. Like I don't need mutant sorcerers. Like sorcery to me is human beings trying to keep up with mutants. Like Doctor
Mm-hmm.
Strange trying to
Yeah.
keep up with magic. Magic's gonna do her thing. Or Scarlet Witch,
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool with Scarlet Witch, but I don't like Captain Britain and all that otherworld stuff. I'm not a big
Ooh,
fan.
I love it. I love it.
It's different
Um,
strokes.
like yeah, for sure. No, I love the fact of I love mutant magic. I did, and I think because I started off with I'm first of all I love mutants and I love anything magical. Like I love like getting into stories about magic. Like if it's a show about witches or something, I'm gonna watch it. It's probably sure. It's probably definitely sure. But yeah, like I like the way they like use or they fuse in their mutants abilities with their magic the magic with it,
Yeah.
and like the beginning of it, I thought it was beautifully done. And I kind of wanted them to do more with the magic because we don't because there's a moment in beginning well in the last parts of New Mutants where Magix talks about teaching some mutants with like no real like offensive powers like magic, and then like she was talking to Richter about it, and then we never and then also thinking about getting Maddie to do it too, then never talk about it again. And I'm like, that would be a smart move. Like I think that would be a good little moment for like non active mutants to have,
I
and a
agree
good
with
book.
that. I'm cool with that as long as they don't go too crazy with it. But like, I mean, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Like, you want to protect your people, you want to teach your
right,
people how to protect themselves.
right.
Then you can go
You don't
a
want OP
multitude of
people
ways.
getting OP even more OP. Yeah, I feel
Right,
that.
right. We don't need to add magic to Nightcrawler. Let's just say, and
Right,
Nightcrawler isn't even OP, but the lovability of Nightcrawler is that he isn't OP. Like he
right.
has very, he's not
Right,
the best, even the best teleporter. He's not.
Right, right, exactly. That's the thing. Like he's not even the best teleporter. Like, but also, yeah, it's his endearing like nature and his like creativity with it that makes him what he is. And like,
Right.
even the addition of him getting a hope sword, I was like, that's still a good moment for him, but it doesn't overpower him to where like, oh, now you just like another one of the overpowered motherfuckers out
Right.
here. But
He
like,
doesn't need to be Omega level, like,
yeah,
or anything, right?
exactly.
Like, we love him for him. Colossus doesn't
Right.
need to be the strongest. Colossus
Yeah,
is
exactly.
Colossus. Like that's the
Exactly.
way he is. And on the flip side, Storm is a goddess. She is super powerful.
Mhm.
But I love it when Storm pulls a knife on someone.
Yes. Right? Like, Jesus, I love a good little, like, street rap moment.
Yeah.
Like, like, that's like people forget, like, she is a street rat, and I love this, and, like, we love this for her, and like, she's a pickpocket, and I want that for her. I'm sorry, I just watched Aladdin, guys, so I'm just saying street rap for
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
reason. Um, but no, yeah, like, I love a good, like, moment where she's fighting, like, the moment where she's in the Ring Perilous, or
The Siege
or
Perilous.
the Siege Perilous. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, when she's fighting the one who can transform into everything, the Omega shapeshifter. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, like, and then even the moment of her fighting Tarn, like
Yeah.
of her just like going like hand to hand. I love that.
Well, she fights Tarn again in Resurrection of Magneto #1, which
Oh, I know.
I wasn't a
We.
big fan of that issue.
Ooh,
It's
what?
it's I know it's gonna get somewhere. I'm okay
Mhm.
with it, but
Mhm.
like I need Magneto back, so I'm okay. I'm there for the ride. I need
I don't
Magneto
care how
back.
you do it, just do it.
You know,
Right?
he's dead, but
Mhm.
he's gonna come back. But like however they're doing it, it's cool. By the way, I do. Who's her boyfriend? Craig. Is Craig? Is it Craig?
Yes. Yes. I wanted to make a whole video just on those few panels alone. Like the way that little moment of how she talks about him was so great. Like
Yeah.
of him just being there and just holding her when she was awake, not even being that scared of her, like, because we like when you see it, like she like thunders out, like she lightnings out of her body, like, and wind and everything, and he just like holds her, and like I'm like, this is such a beautiful moment. And like, yeah, I was trying to find out what she said. She said, Craig, my summer rain, my rooftop in Japan, my quiet in the storm. What? Only Storm talks like that. Like, just
I love it, man.
just I love it. Like, Al Ewing writes her so beautifully, like in such a way that he knows how to encapsulate this black woman's voice, because she just it just it's amazing. Like, even the moment of her with Blue Marvel, and like them talking about the funny moment where she says, in this moment, he reminds me of Forge, and I'm reminded of why I whatever, but I also know why Monica broke up with with Blue
Yeah.
Marvel.
It
And
reminds me
I
of
loved it.
why I was attracted to him, but also why we broke up, right? Something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Here's the thing
yes.
about Storm.
For a moment, I'm reminded of Forge. Yep. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Storm. I don't like her being paired with T'Challa for a multitude of reasons. I
Hmm.
was there back in the day. I was reading the comics back in the day where it happened, and people were like, "Why'd they pair them up together? Just because they're two African, not even
Hmm.
mutants, two African heroes,
Hmm.
and that like
Heroes, right?
that's the only thing, like the most
Hmm.
prominent black female character, most prominent black male character. Let's pair them up
Right.
and see what happens." But like, why? They had never really met. I think they had like one comic that they had like teamed
Hmm.
up with previously, but for the most part, like they didn't. And then they retconned a past history with these characters,
Yeah.
and it seemed too much. So not only did I think it was shoehorned in, my second thing is that T'Challa doesn't deserve Storm, and it doesn't mean
At
that
all.
like T'Challa, yes, is my king.
Facts.
I get it, right?
Right.
But sometimes your king and your queen don't deserve to be together. Like
Hmm.
that's not the story. So like
Facts.
T'Challa Like, I got mad respect for T'Challa, but at the same time, he doesn't deserve Storm. Wolverine doesn't deserve
Facts.
Storm. Like, but who does? Who does though? Is Craig.
Yeah. Yeah, but big facts. Big
You know?
facts. So this is my thing. This is how because I'm conflicted about it. So I did like T'Challa and Storm together. They had a I because I read the Black Panther story as it was happening and whatever, and like I did love the fact that it wasn't just her. What I like about Storm, especially when she's in a relationship with most people, she has like a balance of where she like gives half and half. Like
Yeah.
there's moments where like she is, she lets T'Challa take the lead and she like, allows him to be the king that he needs to be, especially like when he's being diplomatic and doing Wakanda stuff. But then there are moments where like she clearly checks him like in front of him. Like there's a moment in where like she takes over him and her take over Fantastic Four while Sue and Reed go on to fix their marriage. And she's like she tells him, "Don't make me embarrass you in front of your friends." What? That she literally there is literally a panel, y'all, and for like for black people who have black mothers, y'all know the "don't make me embarrass you in front of your little friends." That's a moment that just is imprinted in my mind, and the fact that she said that, I was like, yes. But there's moments like that where I'm like, I do like the fact that they don't make her just subservient to him. I think the big thing is the main stories that she's in, like the stories where it crosses over, it looks like she's the subservient person to him. And in some aspects she is, because there are stories where she kind of just blends into just being the Queen of Wakanda, not Storm.
Yeah.
And I did like the Worlds Apart, the X-Men Worlds Apart four issues where they kind of show where Storm is also conflicted about being both a woman, being the Queen of Wakanda and trying to be an X-Man, and also being all these other titles in her, and we kind of see her go through that while also fighting one of her big bads, King Shadow King.
Yeah.
And like that, those are the moments that I kind of like. But as it went on, like I was like, okay, I can see why you're not, like, his reason why he's alone is the same reason Batman's alone, because they feel like they can't trust them with certain people with certain information. And like and then will get upset that the partner holds out the information, the same information that you would do. But like, how can you be upset for secrets when you are the king of secrets? You know what I mean? And like we kind of see that relationship unravel in like Sword, where like they kind of break up, and he was like, "You told me, why didn't you tell me about Resurrection Protocol?" He said, she's like, he's like, state affairs have never been the reason why we didn't work. Or the reason why we didn't work is because you held things that I needed to know from me.
Yeah.
And like those, and it's those moments where you're like, yeah, you don't deserve her. But Wolverine and her though,
I
I am kind of for that.
I
But Craig,
maybe. I think
but
here's what I
it's
give to
now,
Wolverine. Here's what I give to Wolverine. Sure,
mhm,
Wolverine is white and Canadian, but he is an ally. Like, he is an
yeah,
ally through and through. You don't
through
get
and through.
Wolverine like acting the fool, saying something dumb and like microaggressions. Like, that's not
Right.
Wolverine's full aggression. He's never
Maybe back in the
microaggression.
80s, but
But
nah.
like, no, like, yeah, he's traveled the world, and like, I mean, sure, it depends on who's writing him, right? But like, he's traveled the
Yeah,
world
for
and he's
sure.
been nothing but an ally, and he's been
Hmm.
nothing but a like an ally not only for race, like human race, but then
Yeah.
also for women.
Yes.
Wolverine's never like he will
He's
protect the women in his life because he wants to
right.
in his heart protect them, not because they're incapable of being protecting themselves.
Exactly, because if you realize most of the women he's been with are strong women, he's never been with like a real, like, docile woman.
Right. And
Like even Dacia's mom,
even if he is like, well, what who was docile was
Mariko.
Mariko was
Yeah, damn.
docile,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay. Like I'm not
Right.
judging his taste in women, and I'm not
She ended up
judging
becoming a strong woman.
yeah.
She
I'm
ended up running the Yakuza.
I'm not judging any of that like that's kind of
No.
like the whole thing about like letting people choose their role for themselves, right? But the
Yes.
thing about T'Challa is T'Challa thinks he's the best, and it's a
Hmm.
problem. And like like, and just dealing with my own experience, like in hetero relationships and
Mhm.
seeing other like hetero partnerships out there. Like, there are men that will not hold the purse for their woman.
Right.
Storm needs someone who will hold her purse. Like,
Right.
and that doesn't emasculate you. Like, I hold purses. Like,
Mhm.
if I have a girl that needs to go to the bathroom, you hold her drink, you hold her purse, whatever.
Mhm.
Like, she's going into the dressing room, like whatever. Like,
Mhm.
you do that. Like, it's just the way it is.
Right. I
Like,
feel like T'Challa would do that.
I don't
I
think
I
T'Challa would
I
not
feel
be
like
caught
T'Challa would do
dead
that.
holding Storm's purse. That's my
I This is the thing. I
prove me
feel like she
wrong.
would definitely make him hold the purse.
But
Like
he, but
that.
she shouldn't have to. That
True.
almost that
Also
almost
true.
makes me dislike
But
Storm in a way. Storm should be with a man she doesn't have to be that aggressive with.
yeah.
You know what I
True,
mean?
but I feel like also more for woman forward as well because like the Dora Milaje alone, like, and how like he's basically raised by his mother and how he treats his mother and the women around him. I feel like they he has more of a it's more so a trust issue with him. Like it's more so a I can't trust anyone with this vital information. Only I can be trusted with certain things, and I have to keep you out of this to protect you. I do think the he has a I don't want to say like superiority because like I don't think he thinks he's better than everybody, but he goes into things like only I can be trusted with this because only I'm capable of doing this.
Right.
And I kind of think that's where he falls short as a person. And that's and I kind of like that we kind of get these like the last like few last couple Black Panther runs have just been about him like having to deal with that fact. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you think you're the smartest person in the room, and now your chickens have come to roost. Like the whole the sleeper agents thing with his last run, and the sleeper agents turning on you,
Yeah.
like that. Like now you have to deal with those actions, and like because you trusted no one with that information, now everybody has to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one reason why they don't get along. And I think that's the same reason why her and Forge don't work because he mm, but I also feel like he has a superiority complex. He feels like he's better than everybody.
Though in the recent X-Men issue, he does talk about how you can invent things and he doesn't understand them, and that's like just a
Yeah,
thing. And so, like,
that's the thing, right?
he doesn't understand it, and like that's a problem for him, and he knows that it's a problem. So
Mhm.
I think he has an inferiority complex
Yes.
that then masks as a superior, or superiority complex that masks his inferiority.
Inferiority. Yeah,
you know
completely. Yes.
um
That is an amazing way to put it. Yeah.
well, because a lot of people do, right? A lot of people will
Yeah, for
act
sure.
superior because they in fact feel inferior. I've been
Right.
guilty of that before, and
Mhm.
like that's just the way it works. Like,
Right.
sometimes that, oh, you think you're better than me? No, it's more like they're acting like they're better than you, or they've
Right.
convinced themselves to act like that because they are afraid of
So
not
nobody
being
else
better.
can see, right, and so
You
nobody else
know?
can see that inferiority in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to shout out a couple more things. I had mentioned Uncanny Ken liked magic. That was
Mhm.
Uncanny Ken's favorite character because I asked on Instagram stories. BCL Aries
Mhm.
had said Storm, so good stuff.
Of course.
BCL Aries,
Of
and then
course.
Emma X Babes X said Phoenix. So these are all strong female characters, and it's kind of funny that
Yeah.
like after like a lot of
Mhm.
people's favorite X-Men characters are these strong female
Yeah,
characters. I want to shout
for
out
sure.
that one wizard kid in the chat on Twitch. That one wizard kid said favorite characters: Storm, Emma Frost, Anoli, X-Man, and then Wiccan.
Yes.
If Wiccan counts, I don't. For the sake of this, Wiccan, and then Danny
Right.
Moonstar. Um,
Like,
and
I low key count Wiccan as a mutant, though. I'm not gonna say,
we
yeah,
don't
we can
know,
go either
right?
way.
Wiccan's not a
Right.
mutant, but like I
Like,
don't know.
but
It's
this is the
complicated.
thing. Okay, this is my thing. Now, him and Speed have to be mutants. This is my thing because they're not her technical biological children. So how does Speed have speed powers?
Well, I mean,
Has to be it has
Speed is a mutant. I don't think,
yeah,
but Wiccan
right.
has magic powers. That's not a mutant thing.
True, very true. But also there are other mutants who, because of circumstance, has gotten mutant power because of their circumstance, and we also have proven like certain mutant abilities come because of the circumstance of what they've been put into.
Yeah.
And I feel like, the whole my spirit mother is a magical could be
Yeah.
a little thing that ties into it, like, like just like magic's whole thing of her connecting to the spirit discs in limbo is a whole thing.
I think with Wiccan, I would say I would say Wiccan is invited to the barbecue, right?
For sure.
But
He's definitely invited to the cookout, for sure.
but like if Wiccan says mutie,
But yeah, yeah, you're wincing. Yeah, for sure. You're
right?
like you're side eyeing it. But Wiccan, if he's not a mutant, I'll be totally fine with that. Like magic can still magic. Like
Yeah.
magic happens out of nowhere. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Um that one wizard kid, and we can't get into this because I do want to get into what's to come in February for X-Men
Hmm.
comics
Yeah.
before we wrap things up. But
Okay.
um that one wizard kid says, let Storm date a woman again like back in the day. Who are some women that would match Storm's energy? Um I'm
Hmm.
stuck on Craig. Like I love Craig. Craig is there to
Honestly,
support her. I'm
honestly,
cool with Craig,
yes.
you know?
For sure. Like I love her with Craig. Like the second it happened, I was just like when it first happened, I was like, I don't know. But as soon as the issue of her going on a date with him happened, I instantly was for it. Like
By the way, that
it,
dress that
that
Storm that
dress.
dress, you remember that dress?
Iconic. What? Yes. Like ate that up. I love that the thunder with it, the lightning with the cloud. Like I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this she ate that up, man. I loved it. But the it's the little moments where she like talks about him. He says he doesn't see me as the goddess. He doesn't see me as, the region of whatever. He just sees me as, me as the woman. And I was like, this is a beautiful thing. Like,
Yeah.
because we don't, especially dating a woman like Storm, of course, there you could easily feel inferior to her. Like, but like he stands in her truth. Like he doesn't like you can tell like he doesn't like shy away from it. Like for some reason, I see Craig being raised by a single mom. For some reason, I don't know. I don't know why. I was like, I can see him being raised by a strong woman. That has to be it. But
Yeah.
their little black love moment, I do love it. Like them, like just him like holding her. Like yeah, I teared up. I'm not gonna hold you. I definitely teared up reading that. I clutched my heart, and I did an audible. Oh my god! Like
Yeah.
I was I was
Yeah.
at work, by the way. Like
Yeah.
also, my coworker asked what was wrong, and I was like, it's nothing. I was like, no, but then they saw me looking at my comic and clutching my heart. They know I'm a nerd. It's all right.
Um yeah, so much is going on. We're dealing with the wrap up of the Krakoan age and the comics that come out next or this month. The different comics we get X-Men 31 continuing all this. We get Fall of House of X number 2, Rise of the Powers of X number 2, X-Force continues. We get a new series with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver number 1, which I can't wait for. Like I loved that Scarlet Witch series. I loved it.
Yes, I
I
loved
loved it.
it. I
Steve
thought that was a
Orlando's
real
one.
good series.
Um
He did his thing. I haven't finished it though. I got to right after the Hulkling moment. The Wiccan and Hulkling coming there.
mhm. um Oh, when Wiccan and Hulk were in the Scarlet Witch series. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
when like they had to figure out what happened with the scrolls and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the art in that series and the writing, Steve Orlando, like it was really good. A lot of these X Men series do continue, um, because that's the thing. Scarlet Witch series, it's the same creative team, but they're just
Right.
restarting it as Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver number 1. We
And I
also get
like that. I'm glad they're giving him shine too,
right.
cause
He was in Uncanny Avengers, which I thought was really
yes,
was cool. I like
great.
that lineup.
I thought it was an
I was
amazing
sad
role.
to see it go,
Give me
Uncanny
an armor.
Avengers, but um, we get
Yeah,
Dimith.
I wanted that to last for a long time. I wanted that to be a thing that stayed
Yeah,
for a minute.
we get a continue. I mean, we get all these series that continue, but we get new series with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We get Wolverine Madripoor Knights number 1. Um, which
What is
is
that?
Wolverine, Black Widow, and Captain America in
Yeah.
Madripoor, and I love Madripoor.
Hmm.
Um,
I love a Magic moment. Yeah.
we get Dead X Men #2, sure, Resurrection of Magneto #2,
Hmm.
Invincible Iron Man and Wolverine continue. There's 2 issues of
Hmm.
Wolverine next month or this month. Um, again, they're doing like 2 a month to do this Sabretooth War. We're also getting in Edge of Spider Verse #1. We get the debut of Weapon VIII, which is 8, 6, 7, 8. So
Is he a
Weapon
spider?
Weapon 8 is Peter Parker in the Weapon X program in this alternate universe. Uh, does it count as an X-Men comic? I don't know, but thought I should
We'll
shout it
see.
out.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and we also got
Which?
Women of Marvel 2024, which is
Oh
an
yeah, I wanted that
anthology
one.
book. And
Hmm.
you can't have a Women of Marvel book without having X women in it.
You can't.
You can't.
It's impossible. Like you have to at least have like Jean and Storm have to are staples. You can't have them like honestly, I feel like you can't bring up Sue Storm without bringing up Jean Grey as a strong woman, like
Yeah,
in strong woman in there at all. Like
yeah,
Storm, of course, but like you at least can't bring up Jean like talking about the women in Marvel,
yeah.
like they are staples.
Scarlet or not Scarlet Witch. Yeah, Scarlet Witch is in the Women of Marvel 2024, but so is Psylocke. So Psylocke is on the cover.
Good.
So
That's
I,
good for her.
yeah, there's a lot
I'm
of
glad.
really great characters. Which is why I
And
was asking everybody, like, yeah, what's your
yeah,
what's your guys' favorite
and
characters?
shout out to Quanon for coming out of that. She is one of the true MVPs. Like who I was going to ask you, that was going to be my question for you. Who do you think has been one of the big standout characters coming out of the Krakoan age? And especially that first year, I was definitely going to say Quanon has been like she has
Sync.
took it right out of my mouth. I took it the
Yeah,
words right out of my mouth,
yeah.
like snatched them right
I
out.
I
No,
didn't I never cared anything about Sync, mostly because
me
like I
neither.
had read Generation X a little bit, but not much. But he's been
Yeah.
dead for so long. He's been dead
Yes.
since the 90s. But they brought
Yes.
him back. They reinvigorated him. They made people care. They gave him the best Hellfire Gala
He
outfits.
Oh my god. That first costume, look here, I instantly was like, "I need that to be made for me."
Are we talking the
however
hat? The hat outfit?
yes,
Yeah.
with the coat, oh my
Yeah.
god, the rainbow coat was
For some reason I
vicious.
saw that and I was like, that looks like Neo. Not Matrix Neo, but
I can
Neo.
see it.
You know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
can
Yeah.
yeah. I'm so sick of love songs, so tired of tears. Yeah, for sure.
When I saw that, I
I
was like, I'm seeing Neo. Okay.
I
All
can
right.
if he wore that, I could definitely see that. Oh my god, I
Yeah.
need to write Neil and tell him to do that for Halloween. But no, Sync has come out in such a way, like, cause I like Sync in a general way. You know, like I'm like you. I've never because there are very few characters that you see yourself in, and he wasn't not only black, but the way he cared for other people, like I'm very much a nurturer, and when I put people before me, and Sync you and I didn't read a lot of Generation X, but the things I read, like Sync was always putting himself before people, and I just always resonated with that. But when he came out, brought him back. I never even thought of him as a character or as a favorite character until that, and then he came out, and I was like, oh, this is an actual character that I identify with.
Yeah. I think you're muted. Are you muted?
Oh,
Okay, there we
oh yeah, yeah, I'm back with you. My bad.
go. All
But
right. Is
no,
that?
Sync is but no, Sync was came out and like swinging the first like moment of them bringing him back, and like he instantly became within the 3 years he became one of my favorite X-Men characters, like period, like over like honestly, God help me, over like over Storm and like Jean, like I loved him. He's the reasons why I love them, I like is the reason why I love him. And like
Yeah.
his story of the vault of
Yeah.
going and the relationship between him and Laura that I didn't know that I would ever want, but now that I'm like I need it now,
Yeah.
like him and Talon, like him the fact of it's kind of like portraying him with an older woman kind of thing. I kind of love that. Like, you
Yeah.
know, Like,
Yeah.
older women need love too, and I kind of love that for him. Like, and both of them became more experienced X-Men than any of the other X-Men. They are now older than Wolverine now.
Yeah.
Like, man, I the stories that have come from them have been really good.
Yeah.
Even how his powers have grown, and how like they show like how Cecilia read that little info page of him, how he could grow into becoming an Omega level mutant.
Yeah.
She was like, we could be watching Omega level mutant grow into what be growing but right before us. And I'm like, okay, this is a nice moment. And like the fact that we kind of get these, like, because he became like the point of view character kind of in X-Men.
Yeah.
In the first, especially in the first year, he kind of became like the point of view character, just like learning from them, but also like also being the more experienced person in certain
Yeah.
aspects. And then the whole um him being resurrected and remembering everything that happened in the vault, and then the other Laura Kenny coming back and her not remembering anything, so now he has to remember all these years that he had with her, but it's not, they're the same person, and now you have to live with this person also. I was like, I don't know why I love little stories like that. It was a cool little moment for them. And like the fact that they're continuing with it in the rise of the powers of X, and like kind of making him literally making him the Professor Xavier of them in
Yeah.
the future. Like, I love that. I love this moment. Like, I do like the moments of even how they describe his powers, like the when he grabs powers from other people, and even though they're not there, like when he talks about getting using Polaris's powers, he was like, I can smell, when I think of Polaris, and automatically smell the coffee from her breath and stuff like that, and
Mm.
and he starts magnetizing stuff. I was like, this is a moment. I was like, this is a cool moment. Like,
Yeah.
this man is coming out. We're seeing this man grow in ways that would have never, like, they're making C-list characters like a thing. Like,
Yeah.
characters who have never been like a big thing are becoming like mainstayers now.
Yeah.
Like, people knew Psylocke, but now we know Quanon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It only works though with like 12 to 15 X-Men titles a month. Like it has
Yeah.
to it like the only way we can get that is, get those characters to shine is giving them that spotlight.
Right.
Which they've done an amazing job with the Cracone Age. And I'm very sad to see it end, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that it's gonna end great. I don't know what the
Yes.
next stage is gonna be, but
Mm-hmm.
I welcome it. I will give it a fair shot. And truth be told, I will still read it, but whether I will love it like I did the Cracone Age,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like, will I be entranced in it like I was with this? Because this it is a great time to be an X-Men fan. Like, right now, like,
Yeah,
the stories that have come out of this have been transformative for like not only just like not only for like the stories that the characters, but for the stories that they're telling
yeah,
with like these things. Because when we do resurrection, like when we talk about, oh, people are coming back to life, no one ever thinks that they're going to talk about the how the sausage is made, basically. Like,
yeah,
no one is that, like, usually they leave you in the guess, like, oh, it's just science, so you just gotta hope science is the one that, like, you just had to know that it's science that's happening. But they ask the questions of what happens, like we talked about earlier, like they ask the political questions of what happens when we all live together with this person who's a monster, and like what do we do when we have a literal monster on our council, but we have to live with him because he's the only way the resurrection protocol is possible. Like
yeah,
the whole sinister of it all, of course, like him using a mutant, someone else's mutant gene to become a mutant, and like them asking the question is he even a mutant because of it, but technically they see him as a mutant because he has a mutant gene.
yeah.
And like that's what makes Krakoa such a great story.
It's been amazing. Um,
Yes.
I think this is one of the reasons why, and it's funny that it's happening at the tail end, that I wanted to do a State of X podcast. But I knew I had to make it monthly. But it's a good
Right.
recap of like everything that's happened so far.
For sure.
Um, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and like
Yeah,
chatting
for
with
sure, man.
me for 2+ hours about X
Right.
Men and our love of X Men and where X Men is at this moment and whatnot. I want to thank that one wizard kid out in our chat, and anyone who answered our Instagram story just to get a
Right?
sense of what
Uncanny
their
Ken,
favorite
shout
characters
out.
are.
Right.
Aaron, before we get going though, where can we find you? What do you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
Ooh, so of course, you guys can find me on TikTok and Twitter and Discord at King Krakoa. You can also find my podcast with me and my friend Antonio, at Life Rants Podcast on all the things, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the good things, you guys, and YouTube. Um, but yeah, that's about it.
All right, very nice, very nice. Um, you're here on this premiere of this episode, so congratulations, you were here, the
Yes,
first one. X-Men is something so near and dear to both of our hearts that like I'm glad that we could
right.
get together and
For
talk about it
sure.
all.
I'm sorry I
Eh,
talked your ear off,
no,
man,
no,
because
no,
I can go
no,
on a
this is a
rant about
one-on-one
X-Men.
show. Like if we had another guest, then we'd have to split it by that much
Right.
more. But like, no, it's been great being able to talk with you about it, and I hope that the people listening and or watching
Right. I hope you
got
guys enjoyed it.
that out of that as well. This is State of X. It is one of our many podcasts that we do at the Keeg. This is once a month. So tune in March for the next episode where we talk about everything that's happened since then. Um,
Yeah.
if you are watching us live, you are watching us on twitch.tv/The Keeg Show or youtube.com/The Keeg Show, or you listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Now, if you're on social media, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at The Keeg Show. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and Threads at The Keeg Show /The Keeg Show. We're all over. The Keeg Show is the operative thing. Including thekeegshow.com, where we write articles and we post that up because we're expanding a little bit more. If you want to give back to the Keeg, find us at patreon.com/The Keeg Show. And if you want to find a comic shop near you, go to comicshoplocator.com to find a comic shop near you. We do multiple different shows here. This is State of X. We also have Comic Talk every Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, which, Aaron, I think you're in the upcoming this Thursday's
Yes, sir.
episode
Yes,
of Comic
sir.
Talk, where we talk about all the
Mhm.
comics that came out that week. That is a weekly show. We talk about DC, Marvel, Indie, not just X-Men, but everything that we've
Mhm.
read. And yes, there will be X-Men as well.
Of
And
course.
then we got the Keeg Talks. The Keeg Talks is every weekend. We talk about a new topic every week. This Monday, we will be talking about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which just finished their season 1.
Ooh,
So
amazing.
we're gonna be
Amazing.
talking about that on Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m.
And I will be
Eastern.
listening.
Other than that, that's pretty much it. Definitely stay tuned. We're going to be going to different conventions and stuff. So Emerald City Comic Con is coming up at the end of February, I believe. So I will be going to that. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you once again, Aaron, for coming on the show and being an awesome
Of
guest.
course.
And thank you everybody out there for watching and or listening. Once again, I am your host, Dimithri Perera, and this has been the first ever episode of State of X, a monthly mutant examination. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
T-H-E-K-double-E-G. 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 Get ready, get ready, get ready for the king. Grab your cape and grab your mask. You're either super strong or super fast. Gotta beat the boss and get the loot. Cause it's the king. And we got geek news.